Thank you.
I think he said okay.
Seeing the presence of a quorum, I'm calling the Amherst School Committee to order at 6:38 p.m. Since we have no remote participants, we can just proceed. Everybody is present. Our first order of business is public comment. There are no members in the audience. I have several voicemail messages. I'm going to read a very abbreviated preamble to this, just because I think it's helpful. So I will say thank you for attending the public meeting of the Amherst School Committee. This meeting will be held in accordance with Massachusetts Open Meeting Law and Robert's Rules of Order. The Amherst School Committee oversees the Amherst School District, comprised of Crocker Farm Elementary School, Fort River Elementary School, and Wildwood Elementary School. The Amherst School Committee has purview over the employment, compensation, and evaluation of the superintendent, the review and approval of a fiscally responsible annual budget, the establishment of the overarching educational goals, and the development of policies as the guide for administrative action, and to strive for continual improvement of the educational programming for the district. So my voicemails are here. Our voicemails are here. And I'm going to try to read them in the order, play them in the order in which they were received.
Hi, school committee. It's Casey Maloney calling. I am the parent of a kindergartner at Crocker. I have a 3-year-old who's coming up and who are planning to be in kindergarten as well in a couple years. I'm calling about the agenda item related to the potential change in plan of moving away from having 6th grade academy at the middle school. I looked through the materials and I would really urge the committee to spend some time actually drawing up figures related to the fiscal impact of all the building improvements that would be necessary at Crocker to house those children, as well as to take in consideration the past comments made by Principal Shea in his concerns of overcrowding at Crocker, given the redistricting and maintenance of 6th grade there. Crocker's an old building, and the lower than sort of max capacity group that is there currently is able to maximize the space for services and sped and pull out and specials and music and everything else. I'm also a little concerned about the timeline of getting bids out for all of the potential projects that would be necessary to bring Crocker up to speed with this proposed plan. And so, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Casey. Okay. Next one. Try reloading that.
Hi, this is Nina Mankin from District 1. Thank you all for your service in what is a really difficult moment for our school district. I'm calling to ask that if at this 11th hour, the fundamental soundness of I'm asking that the fundamental soundness of the plan to move the 6th grade to ARMS is not questioned. That facts about the feasibility of the plan within the current financial situation are one thing, but to question the worthiness of a plan formulated over many years with many voices at this incredibly late date only serves to undermine public confidence in the school committee. If an alternative is now suggested, and that is to squeeze an additional grade into a building that is not designed for this purpose, then that needs to be presented to us, to families in Amherst, with clear data, and it needs to be presented by the superintendent. who must be on board with such a drastic change, of course. I'm hoping that you all can continue to work together to solve what are very large and looming financial problems. And again, I thank you so much for your service.
Hello, everyone. I have prepared the following comments regarding the 6th grade academy. Dear school committee members, I'm speaking tonight as the parent of a 5th grader at Crocker Farm. When our family moved to Amherst from a suburb of Boston 5 years ago, we chose Amherst in part because of its stated commitment to equity and education. We value the economic and cultural diversity of Amherst's public schools. What has unfolded around the 6th grade academy has put that commitment at risk. The lack of transparency and the absence of a clear plan have created fear and instability for many families. Parents of current 5th graders are now seriously considering removing their children from Amherst public schools. Private school applications and open houses are filling with Amherst families, not because they want to leave, but because they are afraid. When families with financial means leave the district, equity suffers. Those families have options, others do not. Students who remain are left with fewer resources, fewer peers, and fewer opportunities. Equity is supposed to remove barriers related to poverty, disability, and background, not create new ones through rushed and unclear decisions. I urge you to pause and delay this decision for 1 year to allow time for a more thoughtful, transparent process and a more cohesive plan. At the moment when our educational system is already under strain, please remember that your actions carry a real and lasting consequence for our students and our community. I do thank you for your time. Sarah. Hello, everyone. I have prepared the following comments regarding the 6th.
That's the same one.
Hi, this is Nina Mankin from District 1.
That's just, did that backwards. All right. I'm getting there, folks.
Hello, everyone. I have prepared the following comments regarding this.
All right.
Hi, my name is Sophia. I'm a parent to a current Crocker student. I'm calling in today just to express my relative confusion over the fact that the 6th grade move is on the docket again tonight. After the last school committee meeting, it seemed that the plan was going to move forward as is, so I just wanted to make a comment on issues of communication and transparency with parents. It's also not clear to me from the documents uploaded to board docs today whether or not a true feasibility study has been undertaken for what costs would look like for Crocker, were we to keep the 6th grade there and have the redistricted new populations of students. I understand that the building technically has numbers capacity, but whether or not that translates to space usage capacity is a different question. I also still see on those board docs proposals about adding a modular gym, and I don't know if anything has even been projected for that in terms of cost, whether or not people have gotten bids, what the timeline for that project would look like, what amounts of retrofitting would be needed to accommodate new numbers at Crocker. So these are questions that I think are still unanswered, or at least unanswered to the general public, and I'd like to see addressed before any kind of final decision is made about where the students go. And this is just in the interest of wanting what's best for all the students. Thank you.
1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, that's 4. I think that's it. 1, 2, 3, 4. That is it. So that concludes public comment. Our next order of business is a motion to enter into executive session. So I move to enter into executive session in accordance with the open meeting law, MGL Chapter 30A, Section 21 pursuant to Purpose 3 to discuss strategy with respect to litigation because the chair finds that an open meeting may have a detrimental effect on the litigation position of the committee with the intent to return to open session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote? Bridget?
Yes.
Laura Jane?
Yes.
Andrew?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Deb? Yes. We are we are currently in executive session. Thank you. 6:48. 7:22. Do we need to, do another roll? We do not need to do another roll call. Our next item is consent agenda. So it's a relatively new thing that we've been doing here, and school committees. And the idea is that if there are items on the agenda that there is no expectation on behalf of the chair that there should be discussion or questions about, that we just vote to approve all of the items together. Any individual on the committee can request that the list of items on consent agenda, that an item be taken off, and that would be put back into the standing agenda items, because that's the only ones that are in the consent agenda, at least today. So are there any requests for items being taken off, Sarah?
Well, if fits this list that begins chair's update, we don't have chair's update. I don't think we have school committee member announcements and updates, so I don't think there's anything to approve, right? Or the superintendent's update, I assume we're going to hear from her.
There are no written updates, so I was planning on doing something verbal. But, so I was going to request that the chair's update be taken off the consent agenda.
Okay, then I would suggest removing B and C. And E, warrants, we never need to vote on them. They're just here for information.
Right, I believe they're listed as information. No, they're listed as reports. Okay. B and C and A have all been removed. So any other requests?
I'm sorry, did you also remove the warrants or not?
No,
You
I'm
said
gonna,
ABC.
I'm gonna leave them.
Okay.
Because, so we have some minutes to approve. They're not in the agenda as a paper, but they, as an icon, but they are under minutes, So December 16th. And so I move to approve the consent agenda items. Do I have a second? Then that would just be 3D, 3E, and 3F. Approve minutes, warrants, which we don't have to approve, and accept gifts.
I seconded it.
Second from Bridget. I do not think we need to do roll call, so all those in favor? Opposed? 5-0-0-0. Okay, so then moving on to standing. So the next order of business is chair's update. I did not give myself enough time today to write out anything formal, but I would like to take the opportunity to welcome our new members of the Amherst School Committee and thank the returning members, or thank everybody for stepping up to do this service. I would also like to take the opportunity to thank our former members of the Amherst School Committee who have served countless hours in their commitment to our town, our community, our schools, and of course the children. Both of them are strong voices and have made the committee and our deliberations better for their contributions. So Irv Rhodes and Jennifer Shao, thank you very much for your service. This is my first meeting as a one-term chair. So the chair position is voted on annually. I would like to just globally talk to the public as well as everybody about my understanding of the meeting, which is twofold. It's to inform our decision-making and to inform the public so of any information that is brought forward to us or that we request to be brought forward. In that vein, I intend to run the agenda as each item as an information informational portion with questions, refining questions, clarifying questions. And then once we've completed that, to move on to either the discussion or the deliberation portion of it. I think that delineation is relevant. So I guess for the informational portion, I will be saying something along the lines of, do committee members have informational or clarifying questions of the speaker or of the superintendent or each other? And then the second part will be the deliberation or discussion of the item. I would like to remind, and might continue to remind everyone, that we are a public body, that we are under the constraints of open meeting law, and that this is our only opportunity to discuss and deliberate. And that, as I said a little bit ago, that process makes us stronger, even if we don't agree. And we don't always reach consensus, and that's okay too. And then my last intention in doing this structurally differently is I think it's really important for us as a committee in our process to distinguish the part that is our responsibility and the part that is the superintendent's responsibility. I think it's a little hard to understand if you watch the process how those two pieces fit together. And so I would like to start out by saying that the five of us seated at this table are a committee, and there have been a series of other individuals seated at the table who are a committee, and we are elected and ultimately responsible for the success of the district's initiatives, which includes any implications of the budget shortfall. Our superintendent is the chief executive officer responsible for implementation. The way she puts it, she is creating the best dish that she can with the ingredients that she has. So in terms of just separation of roles, I would like to say somewhat lightheartedly, but with a strong undertone that we get the blame and the superintendent gets the credit. So at the end of the day, it is this committee's responsibility to make sure or to take ownership of what does or does not happen as we wish it should in the district. So that's all I have on that process. That's all I have for a chair's update. Do school committee members have announcements or updates? None. Does the superintendent have announcements or updates?
Not at this time.
Okay. So now we're moving on to the next item of business, which is the K through 12 restructuring. Let me read the description in board docs, because I think that is helpful. Give me a sec. So the purpose of this K through 6 restructuring agenda item is to review the history, timeline, current implementation, future steps in the K through 6 restructuring for the school year 2026. This is a discussion. It is not a vote. And with that, are there any questions? Bridget will be presenting a PowerPoint presentation.
My question is, could we get it up there?
Yes, I just need to know which one.
Sixth grade move, ASC, 10, 20, yeah.
Oh, I don't know why it's trying to print.
That's what happened to me too. All right.
Did you ask for questions already? I thought there was.
I was going to let Bridget
First,
present
okay.
and then ask questions. Is that okay?
Works for me.
Okay.
Can everyone hear me okay?
You might want to get
I think you
closer.
really need
that's
to pull,
What I
yeah,
was
the mic
thinking
in.
too, right? I'll come in a little sideways there. All right, so I think the first thing that I wanted to say is that that this question is a sixth grade move. Everybody who's been watching remembers, like, from last spring, I was like, people are gonna start to throw rocks at me because, again, I don't really understand why we're moving the sixth graders. Like, I couldn't figure it out. And then when I was on the campaign trail this fall, it came up just over and over again. It felt like every person I spoke to had questions about the why of why we were doing it, and I didn't feel like I had great answers for them. And so I think what I heard a lot was like, okay, it's too late, we have to go forward, and starting, this summer where people are like, okay, no, we just have to make a decision and move forward. Oh, so I decided, okay, let me look back, try and study this, try and understand what was going on behind it and why we're doing it, because I think that there's always a risk of having like sunk cost fallacy, where you have committed so much to something in the past that you do it again. And also from like a deep belief I have, one of my core beliefs is in harmony, but I have this feeling that harmony isn't like, let's just go along and get along, but like, let's all understand what's going on and have a deliberative process and a dialogue so that we can create a kind of harmony where everybody understands what's going on. And so part of this discussion that Deb brought up at the last meeting and that I'm bringing up tonight is really like to try and get to that place where whichever pathway we decide upon, that we all understand what's going on and why, and we flushed out there are negatives involved in the possibility of move. There's probably positives that are involved as well, and I just wanted to look at all of those pieces. So the very first thing that came out of it was looking back at some of the early planning and initial approvals, and that happened between May and October 2021, and there was space analysis, educator feedback, and some community surveys. In those surveys, I've gone back and read them. People like the idea of a 6 through 8 model where our sixth graders were integrated into the regional middle school, but still the biggest preference was just K through 6. The 3 regional towns at that time, Pelham was a little non-committal, but the other towns were like, no. And you can go back, stay back on there for a minute, yeah. And so in October of 2021, I don't know if anybody remembers, but my son was just heading back to school after the pandemic at that time. The sixth grade, the RSC voted that they would accept our sixth graders into the building, but it wouldn't be integrated. Community input at that time wasn't very strong because of the time we were at, and everybody who was talking to school committee was like, get these kids back to school full-time, please, and thank you. Or don't, depending on your perspective. So, but by January 2022, there had been a lot more community and student feedback, and the type of information that was coming forward was we needed a lot of facilities planning, the bathrooms issue, I don't know who remembers that, the busing issue, will my sixth graders be on the bus with 12th graders, was another one that came up. And declining enrollments made the move less pressing than was thought. So in January, just about right now, actually we're a little bit earlier than that, in January of the year before the sixth graders were supposed to move, so they were supposed to go fall 2024, Mike Morris said, actually, can we reconsider this plan? And I thought it was interesting to look at his reasoning, because some of those reasons sound similar to things that have come up. One, declining K-12, K-6 enrollment, budget pressures. They had an $800,000 budget deficit. Doesn't that sound nice?
Yeah.
And there was a lot of mixed staff feedback, which I think was a polite way to say that the staff who were expected to go to the sixth grade weren't happy about it. And he also noted that they still needed to do a lot of work on infrastructure changes like the bathrooms, et cetera. And again, came up this question that he brought up in a meeting in February where he said, there's like sort of an artificial distinction that we're putting into place with our sixth graders in a standalone academy. And he wanted to still do work to see, could we have more of an 6 through 8 integration? And so the school committee then voted to delay the move. That was in, I believe that's in February 2023. And then again, we had a second delay. Some of us were on that committee when Doug Slaughter came to us and said, can we move ahead with this? And again, we had fiscal barriers and we had the pressures. And this, then 3 of us who are here right now voted to delay at that time. At that time, Doug and some other folks who were talking to us said, hey, just whatever you do, don't open the 2 schools at once. That's too much on our admin. So that would be really hectic. So that was just an interesting thing that came up. So here we are, January, February 2026. We're at a point where we either have to go 6th grade or go home, right? The time is now. And so I put together some reasons why I'm still thinking it's important to reconsider. And I'll go to slide 1. And that's the regional barriers. We still have that same type of situation where, where DESE's told 2 superintendents of ours now that they won't consider integrating our 6th grade if it's just Amherst alone, that there's equity issues to the other town, and they won't do that. And I'm stating that into the record because just this week I've had Amherst town councilors really hoping and wishing the regional towns would come along and we could have a regional 6 through 8. But on 3 occasions through that historical trajectory, the other towns have said no, you know, and DESE said they won't take our 6th graders alone, and they said it on 2 occasions as well. So one other issue that comes up for me is the Arms building a safe place to put them for the long time? At 4 towns this past weekend, we were talking again about consolidating and putting the middle and high schoolers into this building at the high school. So should we be investing almost $500,000 in a building that we may be forced to move from? And then I just worry about the 6th graders being there isolated, not quite in the middle school, not quite in their elementary school, and I'll talk a little more about that later. I'm not sure that the facilities issues, particularly the bathrooms, have been resolved yet. Space and supervision are a little bit tricky because it's shared between the 2 districts in some ways when they're out in the other parts of the building especially. And again, we'd be renting this space, so does it make sense if you were going to rent an apartment, would you invest into major improvements into the structure of the building? Reason number 3, I think is one of the ones that's really at the top of my mind, is the amount of hesitation among our educators. Dr. Z presented this to us in February, and we have so few teachers interested in joining the 6th grade academy at the, there at the middle school. And I wonder if it's because they also feel like they'd be there on an island. So, reason number 4, the community feedback, the early community feedback shows that while people are excited about the language, and this language model would be that like rotating, so they'd get like a quarter of this, a quarter of that. That's a model we were sort of forced into by budget cuts for our 7th graders, and that there's not a lot of support for except for as an exploratory, but then we'd be giving it to our 6th graders as well. So I'm not quite sure like academically that it's really strong. And the sports, parents are really excited, oh, we could have sports, but it seems like we couldn't have sports. So I'm even worried that the reasons that the community does support it, maybe they don't fully understand. And there's this strong preference that we see for the extra year and the extra stability K through 6. Reason number 5 is really, I think, what Dr. Z's getting to when she shows us everything that they've been doing and everything that's involved up to now. And then thinking about all that still needs to be done to launch successfully. I think of how the change in the middle school schedule went, or how some changes, like small changes with the buses, have led to kids coming late. But we're going to put 2 groups of kids in 2 totally new schools at once. I feel it's asking too much of, you know, at an administrative level. Let's see, it's just that. And then the special education information that we received in the presentation with Tanya and Joanne Smith was that the ratios would be shifted so that the 6th graders would be looking at a 1-15 model in some of the programs as opposed to 1-10. And so I just went to DESE and found out what are the rules on this, and we need a special waiver. We probably have a special waiver already for our elementary, because over 1-8 you need that waiver. And I just worry both about the program quality, but sort of the legal compliance issues that we see come up in towns like Northampton that are under the gun for these similar circumstances. And I want to mention that I didn't sit awake coming up with these ideas. I just been keeping a notebook of things parents come to me about. So special ed, Commandant's teachers have come in to me about the other things. So I just sort of tried to compile them in a simple way to see what the thinking is out there in the community. And I also wanted to present it in a way we have the decision point, and I think, you know, we're getting to the last chance to make any kind of decision if we're going to go down this path or not. Because while the idea of waiting a year is great, then we sink a ton of money into one project that should be used for another, and we disrupt a whole community and then disrupt it back. So I'm a little worried about that. But the other thing that came up was Commandant's. And dual language immersion programs are really designed to be whole school communities. In our case, it's already a partial school community, but it is a school community, so you can go outside at recess and speak Spanish with whole groups of people. Your administrators, your special ed pull-out person can be bilingual, your your school psychologist, etc. And I think that that model would also be, just by nature, not by any design. I think the design they have for it seems pretty good, but just by nature would be less robust for the 6th graders. And, you know, it's something of a cultural hub. That was the issue that parents came up to us with above again and again, is they don't want to lose that cultural hub for their students before they have to at Commandant's. Reason number 8 is really I looked into the research, and 6 through 8 is a well-known model. Lots of people have it, nothing against it, but the research is in favor of K through 6 or K through 8 over it. Those students outperform it, especially more vulnerable students. And I could find no evidence for a 6th grade academy. I could only find very few 6th grade academies, and they were all remedial, let's get this group ready so they can go into middle school stronger. So then it was a deliberately intensive school, you know, in the way it was formulated. I think one of the most interesting things is looking at the enrollment and the numbers, because the MSBA document said that we could put 1,010 K through 5 students into Crocker Farm and Amethyst Brook. But for our K through 6, we have a significant number under that at 956 for next year. And when you go back and look at Crocker Farm across time, the remodel in 2010 was done for 415. MSBA thought it could have 430. And historically, if you go back in the DESE data across, it's over 400 many years in that building. And yet this academy plan just leaves 300 students there. So I feel like we're really underutilizing our, I need a more polite way to say this, but a stellar school, a school that is very high performing and that people really value. We should be utilizing it as much as we can. And the very last thing, and I want to say ahead of time, this budget has no inside knowledge to it, aside from the regular information that Shannon gives us on what a staff member costs and the information that Tanya gave us on what would need to be added to have the sixth grade academy. Now, there may be cost savings on the other side and that type of thing. We don't have those budgets yet. But if you look at the model, just going off what Tanya said we would have, we'd share a third of one as the principal, right? We'd have our own assistant principal. And my guess is that they'll have two assistant principals at Amethyst Brook instead of one, because it's a big school. So we probably add that cost. The music, the nurse, the language teachers, those are really low estimates, because I think Tanya's model is drawing off 4 teachers for music, PE, tech, et cetera, and 4 teachers for language, because she said each quarter they'd get a different language. But, so I estimated low, but I think they're in there. And then put in clerical, the rental costs. I did a fair market assessment, and the very lowest number, I shouldn't say out loud so the regional folks don't get excited, because maybe we can even get a better deal, but the number in the chart would be a very good deal. And then we've got capital costs to improve the middle school, which isn't even our building. At the end of the day, like, I really think about, we've got this $2 million deficit, 20 teachers on the line. It's not an ideal time to change course, but it's not the first time. It's actually will be the third time. Doug said we should have voted and moved ahead in February 25. We did change course in January 24, and we changed course, not me, but the committee changed course in February 2023. So the question that comes up in my mind is, why do we keep changing course? As we get closer, it seems like people recognize maybe this isn't the best idea. At the end of the day, I would like to put people and keep the skilled and amazing professional teachers we have at the fore over investing a bunch of money into a building. And so these are the questions in my mind. Again, I just wanted to put the questions out because it's really important to me to get the answers and weigh things out and deliberate really openly. I guess I'm just not the type of person who thinks we'll actually achieve harmony by saying it's too late, rush ahead, move, move, move. If anything, that makes me want to resist. And I know I'm not alone in that mindset. That's a very human mindset. But if we can be really open and see what all the pieces are, even if the decision is to move forward, I think it was really important we had the discussion.
So Dr. Z is going to talk a bit in a few minutes after this informational part about that part of why she believes, well, she states it's too late to change direction now. So I'm going to, and I hear Dr. Z, I'm going to take questions, informational questions, clarifying questions for Bridget from the committee, as well as Dr. Z. Dr. Z?
First of all, I apologize. I think I had a very thinking face because I was trying to keep track of the bulleted items that was presented. And I guess for me, my questions are, for example, specifically, the information from DESI that was presented, can you please share that? Because that is different to the specific, like, how to I was presented with, which is that for this to be done, it may need to be like a special legislation, or there are different things that would have to be done that are not normally done in this way, because most districts do not do that. However, they have always said, like, if the conversation is to regionalize, then we should be looking at regionalizing and moving that forward. So I really just want to make sure there's clarity around DESI said did not do this. Like, if I'm hearing that statement publicly, I want to make sure that I have what you may have where they said don't do that. In terms of the arms building being safe and at the Four Towns, I don't remember having a public conversation about making it 712 at the Four Towns meeting, but I know that was a past conversation regionally. And if there's concerns about the building being safe and different things, I would like us to kind of present that forward, so if I could also have those concerns. I would like to know my question is where the concern around elementary students being isolated. I think that we've already presented a very different plan around that. I think that was the initial 2019 or previous plan. I don't think that aligns with the plan that this current administration has been put forth in terms of how the the sixth grade would integrate and work within. So I'd like to know where that came from, especially with the recent presentations and series of presentations that we've been doing. Um, the specific concerns about space and supervision, especially when they will have their own staff and there will also be integration with staff. So can we have that? Um, I wrote renting space, but I'll talk about that later. I think that the hesitation from educators, I believe that there is a misportrayal of the survey that was shared in terms of interest. There were over 17 or so teachers that were interested in going to the sixth grade model. And as from the current model, we only need about 8 core teachers. So I'm very concerned when we put forth and saying few teachers were interested, where in actuality we had teachers interested, and we are going back to do an additional survey around this. I would like to kind of just ask for clarity around that in terms of what that looks like, especially when we've already presented what our academic need is going to be. We don't have sports now in the elementary, so I guess, how is that being misportrayed in this model around what's happening? And I think even when I met with students, I made that quite clear. um the I'll talk about the asking too much of the administrative level not to shift, because I think that happens if you ask us to shift. So I'll talk about that in the time. And then can I have more specifics around the legal compliance issues? And then I agree Caminantes is designed. I think I said that in the beginning, and when I first came in, it should be a full school. There is school issues, but we have been reframing and working on it to kind of have a cohesive model, especially after what recently occurred and we know was occurring at Fort River. So those things are currently in place, and there are other union issues that would affect the district with our current finances, that would have affected the districts whether we had it as combined or not. And I'll talk more about that. But those are the questions that I would like clarity on from the presentation I was just given.
Okay, so Dr. Z, are you asking for them tonight?
No, I don't need it tonight. I think that some of it might have to be pulled. So I would just like if we're gonna go through these parts, I just would like to, like, those are my questions. So not tonight, but I think that I would like those information and clarity to be brought forward around these things.
Are there specific ones that make sense to address tonight?
Um,
There's 2 I can address quickly, at least, or maybe
Okay,
3.
So Bridget says there's a couple ones that can be addressed quickly. Are there specific ones that you are requesting for this evening?
no, they're not, but some of them I think I'm also gonna hit on when I go over my memo. So that's why I'm not specifically asking for stuff tonight.
Okay,
But if Bridget would like to hit on the 2 that she thinks, I can mark it off on it.
Yeah.
But I still would like it sent to me so I can share with my team formally.
of course.
Yeah, perfect. And I would just say, because that was a lot of questions, and I took notes, but they already don't look that great, is if you could send me the list after I do. The first one was in February of 2024, when Doug Slaughter, who was our interim superintendent at the time, came to us and asked for a delay. He said that he'd spoken with Desi and that they were really clear that they wouldn't accept this type of model of having just the Amherst sixth grade alone, because it would be unequitable and unfair to the other towns, to the other 3 towns, as the students from the other 3 towns wouldn't be having that middle school model, and then they'd be getting integrated together after the other grade had all been integrated together. That's the way that I understood it. I did go back and look at the tape for this one, and he said that they said a previous commissioner may have said that was acceptable, but this commissioner says that they wouldn't do that.
I'm sorry, do what? Wouldn't do what?
Except just one town's separate grade
Into a into
into
a
the
region.
regional.
Yeah.
Sarah,
yeah.
you're out of order.
And let's see what the other thing was. About space and supervision, the issue came up regarding when the students were leaving that area to go to other parts of the building, especially if they were part of a special program or a different program, that type of thing. But like the question of who's responsible for the students if they're going to the office or if they're in the bathroom in the 8th grade hallway, or you know how students end up in different spaces, and then there's questions like, well, I don't know, there were some 6th graders up here versus like, these are our students, they're all our students, and so we're all caring for them. That would be the best ethos, but I just think that in 2 separate districts in one building, it could be a tricky issue. And the very last thing, I don't think it was a misportrayal, but maybe I need to explain a little more about sports. I think you've been very clear, Dr. Z, that the 6th graders won't be participating in sports. But parents, through the surveys in 2021 and 2023, said that one of the things that they were most excited about moving to middle school was that their students their 6th graders could participate in middle school sports. So what I was saying is that some of the issues that parents were excited about, the additional electives, the ability to take a language, and the ability to participate in sports, aren't things that we would actually see in the model of a 6th grade academy that we have. And so I just wanted to be transparent about that. I'm sure you've been transparent, and I haven't been there with you, but not every person you talk to as you go around town has heard everything correctly yet, so.
Other questions? Informational questions, clarifying questions? Sarah?
First, a quick one, but then 2 that I could ask. I mean, because I would like, or one is for the chair and then maybe one is for Deb. So, but there are numerous attachments to this agenda item and no indication of authorship. I think every document should state who created it. I don't want people to think that these have, and I haven't even seen them all, I guess some were added late in the day, have been produced by Dr. Z or her team as opposed to a committee member. And I think it's important for people to know who is presenting this information. So I would ask that those all be revised to show who the author was. But I do have a clarifying question for the chair, so just bear with me. I don't understand why tonight's agenda has us discussing, once again, 1 grade out of the 8 for whom we are responsible, rather than discussing how to proceed towards a budget for our entire system. I do not see how this continuing focus on the plan for 6th grade without any proposed committee action is the best use of this committee's time. At our December meeting, we received the estimated level services budget for next year that showed a $2 million deficit for our elementary district. We need to submit a budget to the town manager by April 1st, which means approving a budget in March, prior to which we need to hold a public forum. This committee meets monthly, meaning we only have 2 regular meetings before April 1st to accomplish all that. And unfortunately, we can't discuss the district budget tonight because it wasn't posted as a topic. So I ask the chair to explain the point of this agenda item and how, given the limited number of meetings and our policy BEDF regarding votes on controversial issues, how a change can be made, if the committee wished a change to be made in the 6th grade plan, how that can actually be done in a way that allows us to get a budget voted by April 1st.
So I'm going to ask you to hold those questions till our discussion portion. We're still engaged in the informational portion and clarifying information.
I was hoping for clarifying information about the point of this topic. Is that not a clarifying question?
That is not a clarifying question about the presentation that has been brought before us.
Okay.
And that was my intention for this section.
Okay.
You will have time to do that later.
All right, then let me ask if this is, my next thing is not a clarifying question when it gets to be discussed, because so I infer then that maybe Bridget developed the text document that goes with the presentation that was just made, I'm not sure. But I dispute some of the information in it, and I would like a chance at some point to be able to correct the record, I think, so.
If there is information brought forward either in the presentation or the document, now would be an appropriate time to ask about those.
Well, I don't want to ask about it, I want to.
Or address them.
Okay, all right, so I would like to do that about this section regarding what happened. So, in the text document, it's on page 2, regional agreement barriers and second delay, February 2024. I checked the official minutes, approved minutes. I'm sorry. So this is in April of 2024, April 23rd. This is what I hope can stand as a correction, or at least be reflected in the minutes. On April 23rd, 2024, Interim Superintendent Slaughter reviewed his recommendation for how to move forward with the 6th grade move to the middle school and a draft timeline he developed for consideration. He noted in particular that his conversations with DESE representatives made it clear that adding the Amherst 6th grade to the regional school district is not feasible because it would require special legislation and DESE endorsement, neither of which would likely be approved. Interim Superintendent Slaughter also noted that while it would be technically be possible to make all the preparations in time for a move in fall 2025, it would be very difficult. His recommendation is to use the 6th grade academy model with the middle school building with a fall 2026 start. After comments and clarifying questions from the committee, there was consensus from the committee that the Amherst 6th grade students should move to the Amherst Regional Middle School in a 6th grade academy model beginning in fall 2026. There were no objections.
I'm sorry, can you refine what the question actually is?
I said
Or
I
the
wanted.
statement?
I
You're-
said
You're refuting what exactly?
I am refuting on this page 2.
Where it says February 2024.
Right,
You're
under
saying
there.
that happened in April 2024.
Right, particularly the last paragraph, where it says the superintendent warned that, et cetera, the 6th grade model, the 6th grade opening should be done in September of 2025. No, his recommendation was that it happen in the fall of 2026.
I believe that's true for the April meeting, for sure. And we took a vote at the April meeting, but we also talked about it at a February meeting. And so that's what, the one that I was referring to. That's, I think you're right, though. I think we officially voted at the April meeting.
We didn't literally vote. We had a consensus. I asked if there were any objections, and there were none.
Okay.
Since a vote wasn't needed, since there had already been a vote to move the 6th graders to the middle school.
Your next item, sir.
That's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else have any clarifying questions or input about information? Andrew?
Would you recommend that?
Can
that we
you,
hold off?
so Amherst Media wants us to speak like to the microphone, like we love it.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Would you recommend that the move be held indefinitely or for a period of time where we can figure out a better plan or a more review the plan?
Andrew, I'm going to ask you to hold that to discussion too.
Okay.
Sorry. I know this is a new thing, and I'm going to try it out because I think it'll help our process. Laura Jane, do you have any? Sarah?
Okay, I think I can make this a clarifying question. Is it the case, and I assume I'm addressing Bridget, is it the case that there have been no, let's say, stakeholder meetings with families to get their input about the plan, the educational plan that the superintendent has presented to us, to see what their opinions are about the current model?
my understanding is that there've been public meetings where Dr. Z like met in the school or this type of thing, but it wasn't should we or shouldn't we? It was like, this is a done deal and we're going to do it. And I think that's probably one of the pieces that makes people feel like it will be hard to turn back now, in my view. Yeah.
Okay, so, Dr. Z.
I just want to clarify my understanding of the last statement. In terms of getting, okay, so Sarah, for clarity, your question is, were there community meetings to gather parent input and feedback around this move?
Actually,
Recently, in that-
excuse me, I believe the question was, is it Bridget's understanding of whether or not there were those types of meetings? And I just want to make sure we're addressing the question that was asked, and then maybe it should better be addressed to Dr. Z. Was that the
Right.
case? Were you asking Bridget if that was her understanding? Yes, okay. Okay, Dr. Z, would you
And then-
like to address the issue
And then-
of what occurred?
Well, I'm just trying to stick within the discussion of
Yeah.
clarifying.
Yeah.
So, and Bridget, your understanding is that when I spoke to parents, it was presented as a done deal?
Well, yeah, that we will be moving. This is what the process will be like. This is the educational plan. And, you know, and then within that, I'm sure that you took input and got feedback, but that I don't think that, it wasn't like the earlier surveys that were like, is this something you would like? How do you feel? What are your preferences for or against it? You know, that's how I think it's different.
Okay, so do you want me to clarify now, Deb, or do you want me to wait till?
Yeah, no, I think that would be a good
Okay.
time. Thank you.
So, because of the stage of where we are or where we were, we presented the work that was done in a way that says, hey, this is very similar to what I always say. This is what we have. This is where we are. This is what we've moved towards. In those conversations, parents, I did like Cup of Joe, with Paul. I've done listening sessions. Parents and students and even staff gave us feedback, gave us things to consider. What I have even started doing, especially with staff, and we just talked today about scheduling our new series of parent listening sessions, is saying these sessions are more so for me as a superintendent to hear from you around your concerns, around what's going on, around what's happening. When questions are asked, we present the information that's given. That's how I have framed my listening sessions, or even other sessions that come in, so that when we go in there, we hear what those concerns are. We are able to talk about what needs to be addressed, and I am very open. I don't have that answer right now. I'll have to get back to you. Like I will say that clearly. So for me, when I walk into listening sessions, whether it's staff, parents, or even when we had it with students, it was, what are your concerns? What are things that we need to bring forward? Hey, this is the academic plan that we've developed for this. What feedback do you have on this? What are we not considering? That's why we were able to go back and to Desi and clarify in writing. Is it a 900 versus 990? Because recess is very important, keeping this elementary structure. So I just want to make sure that it's clear that it was never my intent, and if that's the impact, then I will correct that. But it was never my intent to present anything in a way of, this is the done deal, especially as we were moving in the direction of making sure this is done collaboratively with all stakeholders. It was more so, hey, this is the work that we have done, or hey, we're talking about transportation today. We're talking about districting today. We're talking about academics today. Like, what's your feedback? And so that to me was the intent and the guidance of it, where I would always say, I am the superintendent, but I need to hear from you, and this is my opportunity to do that. So I just wanted to put that out there.
So I would like to jump in here and just say that, again, the question was to Bridget, what is your understanding of the nature of those conversations? And did they, in fact, address the question of, is this your preference? And her answer was no. And then as a point of clarification, you said, Well, that wasn't the stage we were at, so I wouldn't be asking those sorts of questions. I would be presenting the plan going forward and asking for input and questions about the plan going forward. So there's a little bit of muddying of what is being discussed and what is being asked. So I just want to make that clear, that it wasn't the implication wasn't that conversation should have taken place, but the question was, did that conversation take place? And the answer is no. Bridget's understanding was no, and then your answer was no, because it was not appropriate at that time. Yes?
I would say not just it wasn't appropriate at that time. I was more focused on what are your preferences and feedback for what we are currently doing to make sure it works in alignment with you. So that's the part I want to clarify. It may not have been, hey, should we be, and that may be what you're clarifying. It was not, hey, should we have a sixth grade academy, right?
Right.
It was, this is voted. This is where we're supposed to go.
Right.
We're supposed to have a sixth grade academy. Hey, what are your thoughts about
Right.
this academic plan? What do you like or not like about it? What are your preferences for this part? This is what we can do. This is what we can't do. So I think that for me, just clarifying that parental input and preference was there, but the stage of
Right.
implementation, which I thank you for clarifying,
Yep.
is that we are at a stage where we are moving we're based on what was voted. And so the preference then is, what is your preference for us to put the best model in place?
Thank you.
Point of order?
Yes.
I think it's a point of order. Can we please use caregiver instead of parents?
You have really just got to say I love you to that mic. Mwah.
Can we please use the word caregiver instead of parents, just going forward? That's all.
I'm gonna try.
Okay,
I'll remind all of us.
okay.
Thank you.
Bridget?
And I would just share that that Dr. Z's understanding and my understanding completely align.
Right.
When I said done deal, it was only about that piece of the sixth grade academy no longer being reconsidered as it had been in the past. And maybe it wasn't even reconsidered in the past, like Sarah said, but it was just delayed
Right.
and delayed. And so then, but it isn't the first time of year before the fall opening that we've been delaying.
So I'm going to open up the discussion section of this with my own statement, which is my interest, and I discussed this with Dr. Z when we created this agenda item together, is to do what I alluded to in my chair's update, which is us five, we've got to own this. And it's not pretty, and our decisions are our decisions, that the decisions that previous committees made coming forward are the decisions that we sit with now. That is the nature of committee work. We are in the hot seat. We are holding the bag, and I think it's really important to understand the context of the decisions, the information that was made to previous committees, so that we can have informed conversations, but that we really can understand where we are at, and that is informed by where we've come from. So the history is important, the current decisions are important, and what's available to us going forward is important. I will say that the process, as I've seen it going, well, the process that took place, that brought us here, is fragmented. The information is sparse. The documentation is minimal. Every time I go looking for more information, I find it more information. When it's relevant, I share it with Dr. Z. This is not a process that anybody desired to roll out this way. And this is not an opportunity for blame and criticism. This is an opportunity for understanding, for ownership, for clarity. That is my motivation. Of course, what other people's is certainly theirs. But this is the context that I am inviting and hoping that this committee will embrace this conversation. So, Laura Jane?
I have a number of thoughts and comments, but my first question is this something potentially that this committee could vote on tonight?
The intention is this is a discussion. I cannot limit a motion being made. A committee member has brought up a policy that, as far as I know, has not been implemented in the last 2 years, which is a motion needs to be made a meeting ahead of the motion being passed. So it's a two-stage step for that. So should a committee member want to make a motion, and I would ask that committee member to wait until we complete the information part. This is a two-stage complicated thing that I created, yay. But I would ask that that motion be held until the entire informational part and discussion has taken place. So there's the Bridget part, there's the Dr. Z part, and then let's put the pieces together at the end. And then should that committee member want to make that motion, they would need to vote to make a prior motion to suspend the policy that requires us to do the motion, to vote the motion in 2 subsequent meetings. It's complicated. Yes, Bridget?
So on that complication, and maybe I'm asking this question of Sarah since she brought this, I hate to admit this, but this policy we've never followed hitherto for to our attention. But then as I read the policy, it seems to say you have to make a motion during one meeting and vote on it in the next meeting. Is that how you understand it? So even if we want to have a second meeting and take a vote on it, we'd have to make the motion tonight, or we push it off even further?
Can I respond, please? Well, that was part of my earlier request for clarification about how we could do anything at all about this issue that I don't even think is a problem with the limited time we have. Let me read this section of, and for the record, it's policy BEDF, school committee voting. Part of it says, the last paragraph, no motion on any important topic or policy will be voted on during the first meeting at which the motion is made. To allow time for adequate consideration, for gathering of necessary data and information, and for public comment, a motion will be voted on at a subsequent meeting. All right, we certainly do this for policy. And I certainly consider this issue important. So I would consider it a violation of this policy.
I'm going to call on myself next, because I do not believe we do that for policy. Policy, we have 2 reads, but during policy, we do not make a motion to accept the policy changes until the subsequent meeting. So it's the spirit of it for sure, which is sort of how that policy is written. But it is not, as far as I can tell, a policy that we as a committee have followed of late. Laura Jean, did that answer your question? No.
So in order to make a vote, we would one could make a motion. The motion could be to suspend the policy that prevents us from voting on motions. Then someone else, if that got seconded and voted yes, then we could potentially, if someone wanted to have a vote and made a motion to vote on this, that's how it would work. I'm just trying to understand the process. Otherwise, someone would make a motion, we could agree to the motion, but we would still need to wait for 3 weeks until we meet again to discuss the motion and allow community input, et cetera.
That is the simplest interpretation. taken to a logical extreme, the motion to suspend would have to be brought forward. Then in our next meeting, that motion would be voted on. And then in that meeting, the motion to vote on it would be moot because we could have made the motion in the previous meeting and then had the second motion on the second meeting. So I really don't know, but I'm going with the simplest interpretation, which is you make a motion, we vote, it takes a 2/3 majority to suspend, we do or do not suspend, there's another motion to then take up this particular issue, as I understand it. Okay?
Thank you.
In policy
D, E, F.
D, F, G, H, Y, anyway, sorry. It says that exceptions will be made for procedural motions. So it's a procedural motion
okay.
to reduce the vote. And I do want to say this would be our second, I think the working in the understanding we'd always had under the previous way we'd operated before seeing the word motion in this policy. Was to have two reads, and we'd had a first read meeting, the one where Deb presented, and we talked about this at length previously. And so for the purposes of school committee time, I pretty much agree with Sarah that 3 meetings on this, when we meet once a month, it is a lot. But also I feel like for the well-being of having a decision point and knowing it's better for the school district to know what we're going to decide sooner versus later.
Laura Jean?
Is it appropriate to now discuss?
Yes, unless anybody wants to discuss procedure, we can now discuss this. Dr. Ziti, do you want to jump in here?
I didn't get a chance to talk about my memo and present the district part.
So my intention is to discuss the Bridget part, then you present
Okay.
your memo and discuss clarifying information with your memo, and then discuss your memo, and then discuss the two pieces together.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Andrew.
About the procedural stuff.
Oh, more procedural stuff. Okay.
Just clarifying.
Yeah.
If we did all the motion things tonight, could we schedule a special meeting sooner than the next monthly meeting?
That is my reading of that policy, that we
Okay.
could schedule a special meeting before the February meeting to make that vote,
Gotcha.
to do that vote.
Well, can I ask a
Yeah,
follow-up?
follow-up.
And/or a meeting to welcome public comment
Yes,
on that specific issue?
yes. Sarah?
Yeah, I would note that we have the ability to call a public forum.
Yes.
And since this committee, I think, values transparency, I think it would not be wise to vote, for example, for a change of plan without having really reached out to the community and listened to what they have to say.
Okay, so I'm ready to discuss now, I hope. We're done with procedural issues. They're important, but so is the discussion. So, and I put in my 2 cents. I'm going to try as a chair to manage the meeting. My 2 cents was our superintendent is doing an awesome job with a problem that 2 previous superintendents were not able to solve. But that brings us to the 5 of us and what we think of where we're at now. Liturgy.
So my thoughts are broadly about bringing stability to the district. That what I see and what I heard a lot when I was on doors, when I was knocking on doors and talking to families, was a real concern for disruption and instability. And we heard Principal Shea talk about Crocker Farm. I think overall, the majority of parents that I have talked to believe that Crocker Farm is in a really good place. It feels like a stable place, a place where students are getting the highest quality education and that they feel safe. And I believe that the move to Amethyst Brook for Wildwood and Fort River is also going to increase stability for Fort River. Wildwood is already quite stable. I value stability in education very highly because it is my experience that when things are disrupted or ill-managed or things break down, like copiers or bathrooms, that the educational experience of students can be really negatively impacted, and we need to be thinking about every student all the time. I love the middle school. My children went through the middle school. The middle school is not stable right now and has both physical and structural and administrative challenges. It's my understanding that there was a second dean and a second vice principal hired for a school with less than 400 students. If that school, if the middle school itself is unable to govern itself with a traditional model of one dean, one principal, and one vice principal and guidance staff, that feels like a real problem to me. And the idea of introducing sixth graders, even if they're kept separately, is very concerning to me. I also will say that, I've had parents and caregivers, see, Dr. Z, I do it too. Caregivers have brought a lot of concerns to me about the idea of moving students into Crocker Farm. I am absolutely not going to advocate for that. I think that we know that when these studies were done, some of them started during COVID. We've seen a real transformation in not just the numbers in our district, but how students experience school after going through this massive trauma that we all experienced with the pandemic. And so again, I guess I go back to stability feels critical. And so keeping students where they are, allowing the families that are being redistricted to choose whether they want to move to Amethyst Brook or stay at Crocker Farm feels fine. I don't think that's a problem, but there's nothing that I've heard that makes me feel in any way good about bringing the sixth graders into the middle school. And Bridget's presentation just confirmed everything that I had already been thinking. Thank you.
I thought I had asked you to hold off on a question, and Sarah as well, from the previous informational part of the agenda item. Andrew? Okay, Dr. Z, yes.
I'm going to say this as a superintendent of the region and Amherst and everyone else. I think it's very unfair, and I know it's your opinion, but I think it is very unfair to classify the middle school as unstable. The middle school staff as a whole, overarchingly, work very hard each and every day to make sure that the children that come in, their needs are met adequately, not just instructionally, but socially and emotionally. In regards to a second dean, that second dean position was shifted to meet student needs. And it's actually, and I think I presented this at the region, it's no longer even identified as a second dean. It is a school adjustment counselor position because that's where the need was identified. The second AP came in through a different conversation, a different lens in terms of supporting the overarching administrative structure that I won't go into right now. And in terms of how students experience school, one of the key things, and I had a meeting today with the middle school staff around placement. And like I told them, the reason I didn't have this conversation in December was because of the conversation that came up in December. But how students experience schools, one of the things I said to them today, the fifth and sixth graders that are going to be sixth and seventh graders next year are coming into school together. So the incoming seventh graders and incoming sixth graders, they're experiencing school right now together. How students experience school, that's school culture. And so I just want to say that on behalf of the staff, because when you say the middle school, I need us as school, and I know this is not the region, so I'm going to put my region hat on. It is very unfair and I know that's your opinion, and this is mine, to classify and state that the middle school is unstable. And I feel like the middle school has had a bad rap and is actually on a strong trajectory because there's work that's being done to identify what some of the gaps are and address the healing that needs to take place internally because of the historical turnover in the middle school. But I just cannot sit here and I won't let anyone classify the whole middle school as unstable.
Any further discussions on if we can keep it to this part of the two-part agenda? I'm going to ask Andrew first. Okay.
So same question from earlier that's more appropriate now is I guess to Bridget, would the general idea be to delay or to just take the move off the table,
What I
in
think,
your opinion?
my thought is that we would keep the sixth graders in their district schools for the 2026, 2027 school year and request that the district provide us with a study of what it would take to just maintain 2 K through 6 elementary schools versus 3 schools in the town of Amherst.
Thank you.
Sarah?
Oh, thank you. But now I have a question about also what Bridget just said. Are you imagining, or in your thinking that you just described, would we get that proposal from the administration about how to make that work? Students can stay in their district elementary school, but not Wildwood, obviously, before we might take a vote, or we would vote without that knowledge?
I mean, in my opinion, that we know that the numbers work, we know that the classrooms work, we know that the classroom size works, and I don't know at what point Deb was going to talk a little bit about the document up there that sort of shows how the classrooms and classroom size can work at Crocker with some work. So like we would make that and then we'd ask them the same way like we built Amethyst Brook, and then down the line we got the plan like, okay, how will this, how will it look like if there's any issues like class size or anything that comes up, kids could move in, stuff can happen, then those things would happen. But I don't think that we need to hear all that before we decide. I think the longer we delay on deciding, the tougher a spot we put the district in.
Can I back up to the question?
Yes, please.
Thank you. So you've done some cost estimates, and I'm sure you've worked hard at it, but they haven't been reviewed at all.
No, that's
Okay.
what I said.
Right,
They're
right.
really very, very, every time I'd be in the shower or out on a bike ride or something, I'd be like, oh yeah, but also they have to add this person and then that. So I started to keep a list, and then I compared it with what Tanya said and just did the math. But Shannon's gonna present the cost centers to us, and it will include a projected cost center for what the Chestnut Street School would be. I think that's in February, so.
But again, would you want us to wait to have that information before taking a vote?
Well, I mean, me personally, no, because it's common sense that running 3 schools is much more expensive than running 2, and we're in a huge budget situation. I think you said something about why aren't we looking at the budgets overall? And honestly, probably the biggest question and the biggest reason that this issue came up for me was related to the budget, because how are we going to spend this much on a building and this much on money that we're paying towards the region, and they're taking a share of the regional teachers and all of that, when we're looking at cutting 20 of our elementary school teachers for the coming year? So it seemed to me like that this could be a way. Obviously, the core teachers need to stay the same, but the other support teachers, to some extent, there may be some additional costs, but nowhere near the cost of moving to the third school. And you just even, all those pieces, there's no way it's not much less expensive.
But,
So I'm
okay,
gonna, excuse
but-
me, I'm gonna ask Andrew if he has a question, because it feels like it will make sense then to continue your questioning once Dr. Z introduces her memo and we discuss that. So Andrew, do you have anything? Okay. So Dr. Z, can you, we're ready to go on to that second part of this agenda item, which, as I understand it, is where we are now, where we're going, / why it's too late to turn back now, or however you want to frame it.
I want to begin by clearly stating my understanding of the purpose of this conversation. And the intent tonight, as to my understanding, was not to reopen decisions, but to ensure that the school committee has a shared understanding of where we are in the work, why this moment is different, or how did we get to this moment, and why this moment is different from past years. And for me, more so, my intent is why our collective focus must remain on opening a district for students well in August 2026. But before I do that, as the superintendent of this district, I need to stop and apologize to the families, staff, and community members of the Amherst Elementary School District who are sitting and probably feeling a sense of uncertainty, feeling a sense of distrust, and feeling a sense of not calm during this time. And I am sorry that this conversation may be putting you in this emotional state as well. Because for me, that is not where I would want you to be, and understand that as superintendent, the administrative team will continue to make sure that we do what's best for the students, including making sure that public discussions are aligned with whatever facts that we have and clarifying our intent. So right now, the district team is fully oriented towards readiness and execution. That is where we are at. We are preparing to open a new district model, and that work is extensive and already in motion. Attached, I have a memorandum, and I included, though it is not an exhaustive list, but a list of various overarching topics, whether it's where we are with construction, with communication, the different things that we have, and the work streams proceeding in parallel towards the work of our August opening. And this is what makes this January very different from past Januaries or past Aprils or past Mays. In prior years, January may have been a good time for conceptual planning, exploration, and reconsideration. At those times, the district still had 3 buildings, possible functional capacity. When we come into where we are, this January is not in the same place. This January should be and should remain focused on implementation in the best model for our students. Decisions made earlier in the process are now embedded in the timelines and staffing plans, contracts, budgets, and schedules that we are currently implementing. At this point, the work is sequential and time-bound, and changes in one area ripples immediately across the entire district system. The Amherst K-6 restructuring is a coordinated, system-wide redesign. It includes the consolidation of K-5 students into a new elementary school, the transition of 6th grade into Chestnut Street Academy, redistricting, staff realignment, transportation planning, union negotiations, academic program alignment, and the operational work required to open a new district model. These elements were intentionally not just designed, but put together and are now being implemented cohesively, collaboratively as a district team. Chestnut Street Academy is not a standalone project or a matter of preference. It is a purposeful structural model that responds to real capacity, staffing, and programmatic realities that this district has been put in. From a capacity standpoint, we have presented numerous information around the differences between functional and building capacity. Elementary buildings are already fully programmed with K-6, pre-K, and more so district-based services. Pull-out spaces are actively used for special education, English learner services, and interventions. Adding grade 6 back into elementary settings would require displacing classrooms because Amethyst Brook is not built for seven grades. Amethyst Brook is not built for beyond K5. It in itself does not even have a standard sized gymnasium. It in itself, the cafeteria, is not built for multiple rotations. So from a facilities standpoint, alternative elementary locations present constraints that cannot be resolved within a less than a year timeline. They would require reconfiguring spaces, addressing accessibility needs for students. In cases, it would involve us requesting from MSBA a change in the approved model, and that adds to the timeline. This would also, in many places, like we've discussed, and the plan that attached has, invest in capital dollars to retrofit buildings that are not designed or not intended at this time. Again, I say functional capacity is not the same as building capacity. And these changes are not aligned with our long-term facility strategy and cannot be executed reasonably at this stage. From a staffing and programmatic perspective, dispersing grade 6 would reduce our ability to cost share educators and specialists. Increasing fractional assignments and limiting scheduling flexibility. And I'm trying my best to keep, and this is why I typed it out. Usually I speak from the brain, but I typed it out this time because Chestnut Street Academy allows us to provide services more efficiently and preserve academic programming and support to students. We are facing a very critical budget cut this year, and it is important to ground this discussion in our fiscal reality. The district is operating from a projected structural deficit exceeding about $1.8 million right now. And the town of Amherst has stated that the additional one-time 1% will not be provided this year, resulting in a 2.5% budget rather than the 3.5% that is being portrayed or other town entities are getting. This deficit does not change based on placement. What does change is our opportunity to educate our students and provide them with a proper sixth grade programming when we are able to creatively and intentively implement the plan that was worked on, not by one individual, but by series of individuals within the district. What does this change mean for us? You are now saying that we are going to shift our enrollment-driven constraints, look at staffing reductions differently, our legal obligations to students. There's a lot of information that's being presented here that is snippets and perceptions of what we as the district leaders, as the educators, as the individuals who have taken what was handed to us and created an implementation plan has presented. And I wish that when we presented this information, if there were misconceptions or misunderstandings, or even understandings that needed clarifying, that they were clarified at that time. But for me, what it does change is the district's ability to manage all the responsibilities and realities of opening a new district model, a completely new district model, effectively by August of 2026. And as a school committee, a late shift would require us as an administrative team to reframe not just the operational, but the entire budget programming at a point when the budget process is already advanced. We're having conversations. So you would be introducing instability without addressing the underlying deficit. At this stage, our shared responsibility should be to remain student-focused and execution-focused. Our work as a district team, school committee, and administration should be to ensure that we open the district in August of 2026 with aligned staff, stable and well-considered start times, efficient transportation, coherent academic planning, and a clear message of belonging for students and families. This discussion should not be about where it should be. It should be about how are we going to get there as a cohesive team. That is how we best serve the students of these districts and the long-term health of the district. And so that is my statement around what the memorandum states and more so what the timelines have in place. It is an injustice to ask the school administration to shift at this time because not because of work that was already done, but looking at the realistic time frame and all of the things that we would have to put in place to effectively educate children in August, that I don't see a path forward.
So now this would be the clarifying information part, and then the discussion will follow. So do we have any clarifying information questions for our superintendent? Laura Jane and then Bridget.
I guess I'm trying to understand why, when you speak of this, sorry, I was like trying to take notes and keep track of everything, but why would it be more disruptive to sustain a sixth grade at Crocker Farm and bring a sixth grade into Amethyst Brook, which have already been a cohort through Wildwood and Fort River, than to pull this one group of students out of their respective elementary homes and put them into a building where you and I very much disagree about the level of safety and stability that exists in that school, but let's say we did agree on it somehow. Why would that be more disruptive to the students? Because if we're talking specifically about the students and the focus on student needs and caregiver needs, and not so much about how much work people have done or not done towards planning this, but really focusing on the needs of students to be educated in a safe and thriving space, why would it be worse?
So the one thing that I'm going to start off with is that when we look at, for example, Amethyst Brook, and maybe I went over that part. I could start with capacity. Amethyst Brook was not identified. This is something that started years ago, and we're talking about history. The town voted not to have a mega school, right? This was a vote not to have a mega school. So we all agreed that we were going to build this school for K-5 capacity. To how we put in this educational plan, all of these things were moved forward. There is not enough space in Amethyst Brook for sixth grade. So you're asking us to retain a group of students. Let's say perhaps maybe we could keep Crocker Farm K6, but we cannot, and even in that would be pushing the number, but we cannot keep Amethyst Brook K6. There's not the capacity for that. There is not the rotation for that. We would actually end up losing we did the walkthrough as a team. We would actually also lose services and academic services for students, right? Because of the capacity and logistical concerns of the operation of the building. When we talk about our budget and fiscal constraints, when we look at, and I talked about this, when we look at keeping the schools the way they are currently, we are going to face, and I'm just saying, and Deb said this earlier, she's been sending me documents as she finds them. So from I think the last Excel you sent, Deb, that none of myself or my team saw was from about 2022, 2023, that presented to the town a $2 million deficit in this year. That's where we're supposed to function at. That $2 million deficit in 2022, 2023 is not at level in terms of the services and the current population that we hold or we have in front of us currently now in fiscal year 2026 that we are operating in. So what we have to look at is what programmatic losses are we going to face with our current budget cut, even retaining students where they are. When we look at that, we also see that there is going to be a programmatic impact overarchingly. At least with the current model, we are still able to academically provide students with, to me, we talked about putting back in the rotation of world languages and an exploratory model and different things with a robust academic program that we would not be able to when we came, if we're looking at retaining them where they are. So I'll start off with, for the students to have to what, for us to be able to say, well, everybody can't have PE. Everybody can't have art. Everybody can't have this. We may have to take certain classrooms from Amethyst Brook and and adjust certain programs. Right now, we're looking, as we talk about staffing plans, we're reviewing our CBAs because there are some concerns within the CBA around our programming that does not allow for certain things. So we are now trying to make sure that what our students are experiencing, we can still offer them. So for me, when I think about the students, and I might not be saying this clearly, I mean, I can ask my team. I don't know if Tanya, you want to join in around from the student standpoint, for their well-being. My focus right now is how do I offer them the best academic, social, emotional programming and needs with what we currently know that we are facing. Tanya, would you like to join in to clarify?
Sure. So, good evening, everybody. When we think about the 89 students that are in fifth grade for Fort River and Wildwood, putting them in Amethyst Brook, Dr. Z mentioned around their capacity of the gym. The gym is smaller. So right now there's the rotation for the kids K through 5. There's not time or space to have the sixth grade come in and have access to gym or have access to the art program. So there are limitations based on sizing of the building. I won't speak to staffing, but just in terms of programmatically, it would be then making decisions on how do we best utilize the building and the footprint that that particular, the gym or the cafeteria that they do have right now. So that's where I would be concerned about in terms of retaining the students into the new school, so into Amethyst Brook. Again, there are 89 students that are currently in fifth grade that would rotate up.
Thank you, Tanya. I just want to jump in here and explain the $2.2 million deficit that Dr. Z referred to. So I was able to it was provided to me a document that was written in 21-22 by the then administration, the then superintendent, I believe in conjunction with town council members, that projected that in the opening of the new school building, there would be a reduction in overall operating staffing costs and facility costs of $2.2 million. So when town council has asked us, and in particular Dr. Z and Shannon, where the operational savings are for the opening of the new schools, this is what they had in mind. I don't know where the disconnect was between here's the document and the question, but the questions proceeded for 2 budget cycles, I think. Our awareness of this document, which now helps me understand their frustration, as well as Dr. Z's, which is, here's a spreadsheet. Where did it come from? I don't really know. And it was a long time ago. So discontinuity, scrambled, excuse me, discontinuous process, and a lot of just information that didn't make it all the way through to the end. But that's all I really wanted to say about that. Bridget.
I have some clarifying questions. I think I have questions about the cost. I'm just going to say my questions, do like you did, take some notes, and if there's anything you can answer now, great, and if not, afterwards. I guess I'm interested in, someone at this table may know just as well, but I've been saying 2 million, but then it occurs to me that 1.8 million that Dr. Z is saying plus 1% is more than 2 million. So I'm wondering what that exact number is that we're looking at as a deficit. The second thing is cost share. I'm wondering, I can understand how the region is gaining from cost share arrangements in terms of their budget. And maybe that's something, we're regional members too, we should be considering. But I don't understand why the cost share for elementary is better because the buildings have those staff already. And similarly, in the K through 6 schools we're in, I don't really understand the rotation piece. We currently have one art room, one music room, one et cetera. And the students are able to rotate through those rooms just fine as K through 6. So the question I have about the Crocker Farm layout, where I'm wondering if is the place we're getting into a bump, because when we look at the layout, we can see like enough room for a K through 6 because of the $500,000 expansion that was that's sort of like estimated in the strategic plan for the preschool. And if that's being counted into the plan already, but it hasn't passed through this budget cycle, then I'm just sort of curious, like if that's something we should be counting on yet. And I say that as an advocate and believer in preschool expansion, but I do wonder if it should be like if it's the cart before the horse in terms of our decision-making process. And the last thing that I have is that you mentioned that it would be hard to sort out getting the buses there on time and figuring out all the busing and transportation pieces. And I want to mention, like, in the $1.2 million estimate I didn't include transportation because I couldn't even start to figure out what that portion would be. But one thing we do know is that middle school still now in January is having students arrive to school late and not get there on time. So then I'm wondering, how could we be sure that then this would solve that problem? And those are the questions that sort of came out of the things you said. But I do want to say I really appreciated a lot of what you said. There's some good information there.
Dr. Z?
Okay, I just wanted to know if I could.
Yeah, you can just take the informational questions as you wish.
All right. Our deficit right now is rounded at 2 million. So we're between 1.8 to 2 million, and that's what we're staying. And I double checked that with our finance person as you were speaking, because we're all on and we're listening. In terms of the cost share may not initially see, because you said the building has staff. I want to be very clear. We are facing oh, Allison, you want to join in on the cost share?
I've been watching the committee here in my home, and Bridget didn't understand about how we would go about how we are able to meet the needs of K through 6 now with our model versus that. And I just wanted to address that, if that was okay.
Yes, I was going to get to that one next, but go ahead and get to it. And
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. And you can actually talk to the difference in the one art room, one music room, and the size of Amethyst Brook.
Yeah, so the school being designed to have 5 classrooms at each grade level, 6 grades, you have a completely, the specials rooms are used exactly every period of the day. There is not one time in the day that they will not be used. I visited a school in another part of the state that was designed for 650 students. So I want you to realize we are planning that we are designed for 575 students. With 89 more students, you're looking at putting us at about 650. So I did visit a school that was designed for 650. And they had 2 art rooms, 2 music rooms, 2 tech rooms, because you can't run a school with that many sections of students with one art teacher, one music teacher. So you have to have 2 of everything. So to bring in the 6th graders, they wouldn't be able to have their specials in, like, we would have to have some type of system where people are doing their specials in their classroom. We'd have to figure out how to increase our class sizes. Right now, we are hovering closer to right below 20. We'd have to go over 20 for sure. We'd definitely be closer to 22, 23, 24. I just, there's ramifications to this thought that I know that Dr. Z is going to talk more to the cost share issues. I just wanted to speak to the class, like having 89 more kids. The schedule doesn't work. I mean, there's just so many aspects of things that start to fall apart.
To include cafeteria, because it's not built for that many sections of students to be in
Yes,
the cafeteria, so we have a hard time feeding the students.
Yes, 200 students are supposed to be fitting in the cafeteria through three lunch sessions. So now you're putting us outside of that as well.
Thank you, Allison.
Thank you, Allison. I'm gonna, and I know Derek is on, so I'm gonna have him talk to the Crocker Farm in the decision-making process. Pre-K expansion is in a strategic plan, but that's not like, it is not a deficit, and we've already had those decisions. Pre-K also generates its own revenue through tuition, and that's something that needs to come before the school committee. So when we talk about the impact to pre-K and considerations, note that the school committee also has a role in that, in terms of how we look at the tuition rates for that, in terms of what they bring in, because they are also a revenue generating aspect of the district when we talk about pre-K. But the pre-K expansion, we've had discussions as a district team, which is our role, is like, if we can't expand, how can pre-K operate? But we need to take into consideration, and I'll let Derek talk more so to the conversation around the capacity of Crocker Farm.
Yes, so is it okay if I say something right now?
Please.
Fine?
Yes.
Yeah. Good evening, everyone. How are you? I'm Derek Shea. I'm the principal at Crocker. Listen, I heard Bridget talk earlier. She used the word, I think Bridget used the word harmony a couple of times. I'm trying my best to sort of like feel, this harmony vibe. But as someone who's been fortunate enough to be the principal at Crocker Farm for the last 15 years, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable with this sort of sense that that we need to go back to making Crocker Farm the numbers that they were 10, 15, 20 years ago. School's very different than what it was 10, 15, 20 years ago. And in fact, I can even remember reading in the newspaper in 2020 when Michael Morris was the superintendent, and I remember Mike's words. I found these words online, and he says, and it says something to the effect of Crocker Farm's already super tight for space. We're really going to have to keep a close eye on things as we go forward. So this idea that we can accommodate, I think the numbers I read in one of the reports today was 381 K through 6 students plus, I think currently we've got 79 preschoolers. That would be 460 students. If we even go with some of the numbers I've heard tonight, that we should be accommodating 415 K through 6 students, and you add your 79 there, you're talking about almost 500 students in Crocker Farm School. That's slightly outrageous, to be perfectly honest with you. Currently, we have 25 classrooms in the school. 6 of them are used exclusively for preschool, which leaves us 19 classrooms. And with all due respect, we can only use 17 of the classrooms because our ELL, our multi-language learners, special education teams, our RTI teams, they merit some space to be able to have an opportunity to be able to teach their students. And that's where those 2 other classrooms from the 19 to 17 go. So if you say, okay, we need 381 students to go to Crocker next year, 381 divided by 17, in my math, gets to around 22.5. That's a fairly large number. You then, I think I read the numbers of 575 or more at the new school with 30 classrooms. That's about an average of 19. So you're already going, this doesn't make sense. You know, you're going to make the oldest school 60 years old with an addition that happened, you know, subsequent a few years ago, without all the bells and whistles of a new school, without all of the breakout rooms and no band or orchestra spaces, or there's no parent room for meetings, and sort of then accelerate the number of students per class. Um, I think there's some challenges to that idea. So I would just request politely, and I'm very happy to help at any given time. I've certainly, as I said, been at Crocker for a good amount of time. I feel like I know the school inside out. I looked at Deb's sort of plan B for what our school looks like, or could look like. This is all wonderful. There's been lots of visions in the last 10 years about how much money should be spent on Crocker Farm to improve it and make it better. I'm not sure all of that can get done between now and August. So I would be dreadfully worried about this notion about moving us back up. And I know there was some keen ideas that we should go back to 375, 381, 415. I'm not convinced, or actually I'm not convinced. I wouldn't agree with that. I think that would be an error.
I'm going to jump in for a sec here. I'm having problems with the math. I don't actually think this might be the time to resolve them. But Derek, you're saying 500, and Allison is saying 650, and I'm just having a hard time with that. So I'd like to put that
well,
part
even if you
aside.
say, Deb, sorry to interrupt you, even if, Deb, can I interrupt you? Even if you
Yeah,
say
go ahead.
575 new school, 575 divided by 30 is 19.1. I think if you do the math quickly, 381 divided by 17 at Crocker Farms, 22.4. So the numbers are way off already. You can't have a brand new spanking beautiful school with only 19 students per class and then have 22.5 students in the school that's 60 years old. That's unacceptable in any form whatsoever.
Okay, thank you, Derek. Dr. Z?
And yes, and so there's one more point. I'll hit the cost share. Thank you, Derek. And I want to say, what they're talking to, Deb, is they're talking to the capacity and then the numbers that they're hearing tonight.
Okay.
In terms of adding back in. So if we are, because we are currently pushing the 575 or 570, when we add the 89 sixth graders back in, like the proposal is, we are then hitting over to 650. And we know, I'm going to say historically, since I've been here, Wildwood and Fort River always start to see an increase in population and individuals who move into the district. So combining both of those schools and putting them in Amethyst Brooks means that we then need to know that there is always going to be, as a public school district, the influx of students. Crocker Farm experiences that. So what you're having a conversation about right now is current population, but we are not taking into the fact that we have to account for future populations that would come into this district. In terms of the cost share, the reason why I mentioned the cost share was about the loss of programming. And when we talk about what we would have to do in terms of cuts to the district, making sure that we are able to adequately balance and make sure that we meet all of the students' needs, it provides us a flexibility to do adequate programming for our sixth grade with looking at our regional cost share. And then in terms of the buses, I would like to say that I don't have I am housed in the middle school. Occasionally, we may have issues that we have delayed buses, but in terms of students arriving late to school and busing issues, it is actually, for clarity, the Amherst School District that is most concerning because of our transfer bus issues that we currently have. That is where the biggest loss of instructional time is. And one of the things that we are proposing in the shift of start time is an opportunity to address that with our transfer bus issue, especially with the size of students that would be moving between the two buildings. So we are actually looking around this. So again, we have occasional buses that are late. That happens in every school district. That's not this is an Amherst thing, right? What we need to know is the consistent issue and plaguing issue of late buses actually sits in Amherst Elementary with the transfer buses, and that is something that we are focused in on in trying to address. So I think those are the key points that I got from Bridget that the team and I wanted to address.
Okay, thank you. I just want to take a moment to thank our building administrators and our central office team and Dr. Z for coming, because I think these conversations are important to have. I think this information is important to be dispersed, distributed. The document, Dr. Z, that you put up, the overarching topic, the tasks, the deliverables, and the tentative timeline, I found extremely helpful, because this is what I'd been yearning for and perhaps asking other chairs for a long time. So, you know, I'm an information junkie. But I think these questions have been swirling and they've been coming at us. I assume they've been coming at you. And I think it's just really important to have the discussion, to have the conversations. And I appreciate it. I understand the timing is terrible. But there's no bad timing for sharing understanding. So I just, again, appreciate it. I hear you all. I want to assure you that I don't think our intention is to blindside anyone. I think, again, it's been a fragmented process. I think Dr. Z and her team have been working exceptionally hard to do something very difficult. And the disconnect, the lack of my ability to get the information I feel I need to have informed conversations with the community and with Amherst Town Council has been a driving force in me continually bringing this conversation forward. It's not a lack of confidence in Dr. Z. It's needing to engage in very critical conversations in the areas that I feel like we've seen a little bit of movement about that 1%, about what possibly is available for the surplus in terms of not operating, but in terms of investment in the Amherst elementary schools. So I thank you for hanging in there for the ride. I know you don't have much choice because this is all about what's best for the students, but I think this is healthy. Healthy for us in a time of limited resources where these questions are being raised in smaller conversations, perhaps where critical decisions are being made about our operating. So I just wanted to present that as my own 2 cents, and I hope I won't jump in again. But now I'd like to open up the conversation for all pieces brought together, the Dr. Z part, the Bridget part. The part that Derek was referring to was, maybe, Seth, could you pull that up?
Yes.
Yeah, so it's going to say something on board docs. It's going to be CF floor plans with modifications. So this was my hope. This was my looking back at the Crocker Farm feasibility study, which I understand was not commissioned by the town, and looking at really what Derek is saying, which is there's not adequate space for small group instruction, which is why classrooms are being used for that. And absolutely, preschool and OT and PT, and what else am I missing? All of those pieces, I don't even know what RTI is, but all of those pieces, that building isn't designed for it. So my understanding, and it's just an understanding, is that while we don't have much hope at this point in getting a lot of movement in big changes for this operating budget for FY27, not that we won't try, but that there is capital possibly available to give Crocker Farm some love, which it needs anyway, and make it a more functional space. Can we do it? I don't know. How much would it cost? I don't know. The conversations I've had are very preliminary. And it's just a hope. It's just a hope that those teal circles, that square, those places that were designed, were presented in the Crocker Farm feasibility study to enhance Crocker Farm would relieve the pressure that we're speaking of regarding the functionality of a 50-year-old building and the needs of its students and its staff. I think that's all I have to say. So those are the pieces that we may now I welcome the committee to discuss. Lord James.
Allison, it was nice to see you on the screen. I don't know if you're still watching. I guess I have questions. So my kids were at Wildwood when COVID hit, and there was a lot of reconfiguration that needed to happen in order to make the school a safe place for people to be, even though, you know, they had to sit 6 feet apart. Remember all that? So I guess I've yes, we remember. It wasn't easy, but it was done. And I guess I got a little lost with the numbers, but that happens to me all the time with numbers, so that's fine. I guess I'm trying to understand why Crocker Farm would have a negative impact if it just stayed as it is, right? If like the 6th grade just stayed there, and why these beautiful giant classrooms that are in Amethyst Brook couldn't be somewhat reconfigured in a way to allow for the kind of things that you're talking about, 2 art classes, 2 music classrooms, things like that. I mean, I still have, you know, memories of like music happening in the hall. You know, there was all kinds of ways that we had to manage COVID. And this is obviously, we have way more time to plan if we were going to reconfigure the way that Amethyst Brook is. But I'm trying to understand like why that presents so much of a barrier. And oh yeah, okay, thank you.
Can I respond, Deb?
Please.
So as I was sitting here, I just wanted us to be aware that right now we have been configuring classes for 30 classrooms, 550 to 575 kids. So let's say that we are going with the lower end, right? So at 550 kids, 6th grades, we are looking at class sizes of 18 to 19. To bring in the 89 students who would be a part of the 6th grade, that means our class sizes go to 21 to 22 kids per class. And then the sections, I just want us to be aware, the sections that you're running, because you only have the 5 teachers in the art. So by contracts, remember, our teachers need to have a planning period a day, 40 minutes a day. And we've spec'd that out so that we know that for that to happen, there are 6 40-minute periods in a day. So the art, library, music, PE, and tech teacher, their whole day is full from beginning to end, and then they get their own 40-minute planning period and a 30-minute lunch. Okay? So when you start pushing in the 6th grade, you don't have the capacity to run all of those sections as the building is arranged. The building was arranged to have 2 grades per floor, right? And that's about, it's going to be about 150, or it's like 175. I need to do that again, but when in my head I always say it's going to be a community, a neighborhood on each floor of fewer than 200 students. And as we are creating that, you have K1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You push sixth grade in, where do they go? Are they going to go on the end, which limits where our ILC and building blocks programs will go? Are they going to go on the other end, which limits where our ELL and special education students will go? Because that's where those things are supposed to be happening. There, the architects were very clear in designing this to be a sixth grade school. That is where all of our planning has gone into, and that is how the intention of it has been, okay? And that is without understanding that we're going to get fluxes and shifts coming in and out over the course of the years. I would ask this committee to not be afraid. You have a team of administrators who are very much dedicated to the health and well-being of our students. The fifth graders that I speak to are not afraid. They are excited about this opportunity to be at the middle school. We can make the middle school be what it needs to be so that everybody feels good about this. I truly believe that in my soul. And I would never want to have something come into a space that would put any of my sixth graders or fifth graders in danger or feel unsafe on any level. Every sixth grader who has come back to me from the middle school, I ask them, tell me, how's it going? How are you enjoying? And they tell me they're having good experiences, they're making friends, they feel supported. And I understand that there's sometimes reputations and situations that are happening that can create a story that doesn't fit along with that. But I'm telling you, you also have the other side of it, where kids are thriving. And so let's embrace this moment so that there are actually fewer transitions, because if we go through with this proposal the way that you have spoken about it, the only people who are not transitioning as much are the Crocker Farm fifth graders. My fifth graders have to transition to Amethyst Brook and then transition to the middle school. Why are we going to ask them to do these double transitions when they could go to the middle school together with their cohort from Amherst, and they actually are going to be more developed and more connected to each other going into seventh grade? I think we can make sixth grade a wonderful experience for them. And I just feel like the challenge of this moment is our vision. So I would ask us to be bold rather than give in to this idea that we are not capable of this, because I truly believe we are.
So let me jump in here because I am chair and I am trying to run the meeting and facilitate the conversation, but I also started this ball rolling back. Well, I tried to start it rolling back in October. When I first saw the projections of the population and it declining, and I had never seen any projections of the population that was anything but increasing. So my first thought was, it's flat, and we're right at the edge, and I understand, because I've said to so many people, students are not marbles to be put in boxes. And then there I was, putting marbles into boxes, talking to other people who said, hey, have you looked at this set of marbles in boxes? So I feel like that is something I was very conscious of at the time. And then we got the information that we were going to be looking at even larger increases in health insurance for this upcoming year than we faced for last year. And then there was this idea that the extra 1%, so as you know, the town of Amherst provided an assessment for this year, FY26, of 4% built into its base plus a 1% increment over last year as a one-time only thing from free cash. And my mind just started with, how do we get that 1%? How do we get that built into the base? And the idea was, again, with the town councilors, I'm sorry, with the conversations that are going on out there, they are expecting that $2.2 million savings, and that's what that 1% hinged on. So it became a fiscal issue for me, and I just kept looking at two bad solutions. One being, let's talk about what it would look like to keep the sixth grade in the elementary schools and mitigate this very large, very painful decision that we're going to be making. The $2 million is just staggering. So that's where I was coming from in October. And here we are in January. And thank you for addressing some of these issues. They're very complex. Everything is all tied up in everything else. I did not introduce the topic, or try to, back in October, to create uncertainty, to create instability. It was to inform myself. It was to understand so that I could engage and advocate, as I think is my role, or I hope is my role, and support. I was very concerned, and I remain concerned, that our superintendent is going to be criticized for implementing something that was not of her creation. And I want this committee to own that if it doesn't work or if it's not optimal, it's on us. And we need to know the pieces that brought us here, the history, the information, the conversations, so that we can then have those greater conversations. So that's the end of my little perspective on things. Are there more interest in having more discussion?
Deb, I had one thing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
No, it's okay. I just wanted to think that I think Tammy wanted to chime in.
Oh, of course.
Because she's the one principal who did not get to speak this evening, so I wanted to give her the opportunity, if you don't mind.
Yeah, of course. Tammy, please.
Good evening, everybody. It's certainly a very in-depth, very challenging conversation for sure. Someone that's been in this for multiple years now. And I want to address just a few things. One, there was a school committee member that alluded to Fort River not being stable, and I just want to address that in fact, Fort River is stable. We've worked really hard, both as a school and as a district, to ensure that students are getting what they need and are feeling supported and are making the level of progress. And I'm watching the middle of the year benchmarks coming in, and they're strong. So I just want to be very clear that my staff and my students and my caregivers, while they don't all 100% always agree with me, that's okay. But we are stable. The other thing it feels like in listening to this is that there really is no forethought about Cominantes and the impact that these suggestions will have on the dual language program. So I guess as a school committee, you're going to need to decide whether or not you feel like Cominantes should move forward. I know that's really strongly worded, but currently the way Amethyst Brook has been designed very carefully and very purposely as a K-5 model. 3 classes would be non-dual language, with 2 classes being dual language, similar to the model at Fort River. If in fact 6th grade is introduced, that would mean there would no longer be 5 classes. That would have a significant impact on the dual language program. So that would be something that all of you would really need to think about and consider and rectify the agreement that you all made. And I just really want to echo more of what Allison said and what I know Dr. Z has been saying, is that I don't think the school committee in our town should be afraid. I think we have really incredible people that are really doing a lot of this hard work and have thought about every single possible scenario and really thought it through very carefully and very strategically. And so I really love this team, and it hurts my heart to be in this position where we are today, instead of really tackling how we're going to get there in Dr. Z's words. And my final comment that I'd like to say is I've been moving forward with my fifth graders. They are excited and scared about moving into the Chestnut Hill Academy. I have a little group of fifth graders that I've been meeting with, adding on to, and they have all sorts of fantastic ideas about, one, how to end their fifth grade year, but two, what they're hoping for their sixth grade year at Chestnut Street.
Thank you, Tammy.
Nope, that was a mistake.
Dr. Z, any?
Um,
You have the
I
floor.
think, thank you. I think for me, first of all, thank you to my team. This is not, like I said before, this is not the singular work of one person. Everything that we have put forth, from the educational plan that Tanya led, but she didn't do it alone. And as she presented, she talks about collaboratively. She spoke to sixth grade teachers and individuals who were interested in going to sixth grade. She got the feedback from middle school teachers. The principals, we meet bi-weekly. Like, and if I'm not there, the team continues, because this is not about Dr. Z. This is about the district and the students. So we are invested. And what we're saying is, yes, there are a lot of great things that you may be thinking about for the district, and that's your role as school committee. But realistically, with 6 months to go, we, Allison, Mike, Shannon, like a series of us today, left a 2-hour moving coordination meeting with our OPM, talking about when are crates going to be delivered, the move, and it was not only about Amethyst Brook in terms of going from Wildwood. It's about literally, because we had to frame for them that in this conversation, when we talk about what we're doing moving forward, there is also the possibility that teachers from Crocker Farm are going to be moving to the middle school, and teachers from Crocker Farm are going to be moving to Amethyst Brook, because there's a different layer of this concern when it comes to staffing, which comes into RIF notices, which comes into balancing things. And so for me, the energy that we should be putting forward right now is the energy that we are moving in as an administrative team. And I'm going to say this, I didn't ask everyone to come out and speak. They came out because they are just as passionate about the work that they have put in, and we have moved as a team. So I get it. And when Deb and I had the conversation about this, we talked about it being a discussion so the school committee can own and have the knowledge to say, this is what we know based on what we've researched, but this is what the team is working on. I even told her, if there are clarifying questions, and that's why I'm trying to get them, let us know what are, like, we are not a non-feedback driven team. If there's something or a way that we need to present this information so that it provides you clarity, I'll add it to our updates. Like those are things that are there. But to negate that this would have a critical impact to the start of the school year is something that I cannot let us walk away from here saying. Any shift at this moment would cause us to pivot drastically, and we are already moving this train in this direction, and this is not the time. So for me, I think one of the things I heard from a team member is, I feel like we're having a 2-year conversation in a one night meeting that could impact children and will impact families. And that's the reality of this. This is not about, oh, it seems easy. This is not about, oh, well, we could just flip this real quick. This is about really strategically making sure that we have put our best efforts forward at opening a school district with our best intentions, that, and we know plans have mistakes and errors, so we already have the unknowns that we are going to have to face. But to put the families and students in this, where we would be rushing to re-alter a plan that we are already moving towards in 6 months, that would put us at greater jeopardy of higher unknown risks than allowing us to adequately continue our planning moving forward. And that's what I would like to say.
I'm gonna ask Sarah and then Bridget.
Yeah, so now I can make a comment as opposed to ask clarifying questions? Yes.
Of course, yes.
Yes, okay. It is very distressing to me that this issue keeps coming forward, apparently because of, partly of concerns that parents had 5-6 years ago about sixth graders in the middle school before there was any plan like we have now. Or the concerns are generated by phone calls or outreach from caregivers who have concerns. I mean, it's that we hear from the people who are upset or worried. That is not an indication of a larger problem or concern or worry about this sixth grade academy. I'm also very distressed by the lack of confidence that my fellow committee members show in the professional expert judgment and experience of our superintendent, our longtime principals. They know what they're talking about. We've heard them now at least twice respond to the same concerns. They're giving the same answers. We even heard the problems with trying to stuff more students into Amethyst Brook from the architect back, I think, in September. So it does seem like committee members are in a place of fear and showing absolutely no confidence in our administrative team, in our building leaders. And that's just shocking to me. I think if we make a change, we are going to be damaging our students because, as Allison said, what happens if you move the sixth graders, that ripples into every other grade. It's going to be damaging to all our students. It's going to be damaging to our staff. It's certainly damaging to this committee. And just creates more instability in a time when we are finally moving to a place of stability. So, I mean, I hope and pray that we do not vote to change course at this time. I think it would be a terrible mistake, terrible.
So I'm going to jump in here. One of the things that I learned in my graduate school life with work with the School of Education, and I wrote it on a little index card and when I ran for school committee and stuck it up on my bulletin board, it is not to climb the ladder of inference, and I've tried very, very hard not to do that. So I agree with your characterization, Sarah, of the consequences of, or at least that I agree you're expressing your understanding of the consequences of changing direction at this point. I disagree when you characterize the motivation for people bringing these issues forward as based in individual phone calls, conversations, and fear. But that is your prerogative. That's not where I am operating from. I'm operating from a point of looking under rocks for solutions to problems that we are all facing as a community, as a district, and as a school committee.
Can I respond
Of course.
to? Okay, I don't think there's a problem. I don't think there is a problem to be solved, except for some people's lack of confidence in our superintendent and in the work her team has done. I'm giving my opinion.
Yeah,
Okay?
I thought you were.
I don't think there is any problem to be solved. I think we just move ahead with the plan.
You did think there was a problem. The problem you think is other people's lack of confidence. So you do think there's a problem. You don't think there's a problem with the plan. You think there's a problem with your school committee members, where they're coming from, and what's going on in their motivation of this conversation, of driving this conversation. Bridget?
Yeah, I guess the first thing I want to do is just say I feel mischaracterized that these conversations came from 5 or 6 years ago. I walked doors in October and I talked to, over 50 different parents with kids in the elementary schools. Some of them might have been unhappy I was knocking on their door, but once I was there, they gave me their thoughts and opinions. Then I was at caregiver meetups and I went to, barbecues in the apartment complexes and stuff like that. Talked to people and had conversations about what was going on. On top of it, I've talked to CPAC parents, Comandante's parents, etc. And the question isn't a lack of confidence in Dr. Z. Honestly, I would feel much better if Dr. Z had been in charge of this plan 5 or 6 years ago and brought us through to this current moment. But all the discontinuity in the planning and the way that it was brought forward and moved with the 6th grade, hoping and praying against hope. People this week even are still praying that we'll be in a regional school district somehow 6 through 8. It just made me say, okay, I need to understand this better myself. So I don't lack confidence, but I am afraid. I have fear. I want to say that's true, but I have a fear of a school district where we, and I will fight on the budget till the end of time, so I'm not accepting this budget, but $2 million plus dollars, 20 plus people, right? How confident do building leaders and everyone feel about their ability to run that? At the same time, we're at least adding another $1 million plus to run a new school. We could lower that number at the end of the day, it seems to me, by getting there. And maybe we'll find different things out with the budget numbers, but just common sense tells me that's not the way it's going to go. And I just wanted to come back to something, and Deb did a layout plan like this for Amethyst Brook as well, but I don't think we have it attached to tonight's packet. But when we were at 575, with 30 classrooms, we get 19.16 per class. And then at 381, using 19 classrooms, we're at 20.05, so 20 students at Crocker Farm. But to do that, we do need adjustments here. There's already $350,000 this summer planned for Crocker Farm's gym in the gym in the HVAC. So there's already money planned there. There's $450 set aside for this move to the middle school. So there's capital funds there for the move. All of this is just to say, like, it wasn't without a lot of thought. At the same time, these folks have been working 40 hours, 50 hours, 60 hours a week trying to put the plans together and make it work for the kids they have. So I have nothing but like deep respect and honor the work they've done, and I'm not trying to just come in there and be like, ha, now do this. I think what I wanted to put forward or want to say is, like, given the financial stress, given the hardship we're in, and given all the advantages to a K through 6 model, et cetera, the concerns that Comandante's parents have shared, CPAC parents have shared, random people who weren't expecting to see me on a Saturday afternoon have shared, that we should have the discussion publicly and decide. I think we need to make a motion for a vote just so we can make a vote and make it final. So people don't think, well, in May, they're going to bring this back, that type of thing. So, and if that means we have another meeting where we hear from the public, and then take a vote, fine. I'm not decided. I don't have a vote at this point. I wouldn't be pushing hard one way or the other. My main thought is that I needed to hear everything, and I need everyone to understand these, when they say fiscal cliff, it really feels like that. And then 3 schools, we closed a school. We closed a school the year my son was going to start at that school. Thank you, Amherst, because of financial issues. So then opening another school that's almost the same size as that school, I in common sense way, I don't see how the maths, and after a long look at the history and trajectory and some of the research, et cetera, it raised more concerns that aligned with what community members were saying, and I did not bring it to the table because I disrespect this group. If anything, those people on the screen, like, the amount of respect I have for them is very deep, and I'm very, the school that Derek runs, my goodness, it's a community of love, and that man climbs on the roof when his students write enough books. And so even though, like, I don't know what MSBA was thinking in saying 435 at that school when we built, but that they say that's possible. And it was remodeled in 2010 for 415, right? The 2010 remodel of Crocker Farm was for a capacity of 415 kids. And I know he was saying like 10 years ago, 20 years ago, but in 2018 it was at 408, and then 2014 to 2017 it was as high as 435. So I'm not saying it's ready now, but I think that there's some things that could be done, including we could ask for capital project. We priced out modular gym for like 1.2 million. I don't know. I can imagine after all the work they've done, they're thinking, not now. And I can see why Sarah is saying not now, right? But I also think, what about now when we're stuck with 3 schools and we put all our capital money into the middle school, which we don't even own, and have to do a turnaround? Yeah, maybe it is fear, but it's not lack of confidence in the team. I'm really fearful about these budgets.
So I'm going to have Andrew, Laura Jean, and Dr. Z, and then I'm going to ask us to wrap up the conversation.
I actually wanted to, to reiterate what Bridget just said. It's not at all about a lack of confidence with everybody on the screen attending. I deeply value everything and all the work that you've put into this. My question is more of a shift in focus to, what are your biggest fears about the current plan? What are the biggest unknowns that you would want us to know about in making this decision, in considering this decision? What does scare you about what's ahead for the plan that you're working on?
Is that for me, Andrew, just to
Oh,
clarify?
sure, anyone, but yes, sure, you.
So I'm gonna say this, for me, I think that the biggest fear right now is this conversation. Because it derails us and distracts us from, like, I find this to be a distraction from addressing the fears and concerns that we have as we're working in the current plan. I don't know if that's making sense, but one of the things that when I first came in, I did not hide. I did not hide to anyone else. Like, this didn't make sense to me how a K-6 district was building a K-5 school, right? I didn't hide it. But it is where we were. It is what we have to move with. Every time we come up, every time we're working towards something, we did the redistricting. We brought forward the district concerns. We looked at things. Everything that came up was actually from the feedback sessions, from the loop. So what is the considerations for established students? What are we doing around that? Here's the biggest concern I have right now. Every time this conversation comes up, it actually delays the work of this team, because we pause in executing letters, engaging families, doing all of the, like, I didn't meet with the middle school staff because of the discussion in December. So this is actually delaying and causing me more fear, because every time this comes up, there is a possibility of having to shift and stop the work that we have currently been moving on a trajectory for, and puts us at somewhat of a delay and a deficit to adequately implementing, even though we are still moving forward. So we're sitting down in our moving coordination meeting today, and some of the things that we were supposed to already as a team be ready to address, we have what ifs, but then we also know, like, okay, well, hey, the school committee may do something different. Like, really, my biggest fear, and I can't even focus in, like, my biggest fear is I can't even focus in solely on where we need to be, because I'm also sitting down hearing the directional force of the committee talk about a possible complete programmatic operational shift at this time, where we are like we have the three things laid out, and that's why I'm like wondering where these budget numbers are coming in terms of the middle school being over $1 million when we haven't even presented a budget model. And our last discussion as a district team, we have all three sections built out, and we are at level services, and we are actually in looking at where the reductions need to be. So for me, I honestly, where my mind is right now as a leader is my team is so distracted by this that we can't even address what know we need to be addressing because of where this puts us, what this does to us. And then there's some voices. I know my hand has been up, and I know Marta wanted to add, because I think one of the other things is there's some unheard voices in the room, right? There's some parents who we don't always interact with and engage with, and that's our most marginalized students. And the family center's role is to reach out to those parents. So even in this, and I just wanted to, Deb, if it's okay, give Marta 2 minutes
Of
to
course.
add that bit of information around the work they've done with families and reaching out to families.
Yeah, so thank you. I'll be quick, but I think it's really important because we talk about all families, all students, right? So we really mean it. When we heard there may be some people or there was some discomfort or questions from the community, we said, let's set out to hear from those who historically have been voiceless. And, we have some undocumented families. We have many families of Latino descent who are not necessarily participating in all of the forums. I mean, and we set out to ask because, trust is very important for families. And it is the case that our families trust our principals and the staff that they're working with. And they tend to believe that if the principals are behind the notion that it's a great idea or it will be a good thing for students to go to the sixth grade, to the middle school, they're usually behind it. But we set out to call on these families. So I am determined that our office is going to call all of the families of Latino descent and then perhaps other folks just to find out. We wanted to check for understanding. We wanted to hear their voices. We want to make sure that they were understanding, if they had questions, etc. And I'm really happy to share that for the most part, people are excited. I mean, adults are like, I didn't think they would be going to the middle school, but if you think that's okay, how would it work? And we've engaged in great conversations about it. And more than a couple of times they said, what do you think? So they tend to somebody, that they trust and they ask for direction. And I'm like, I think it's going to be a great thing. There's this opportunity for language, this opportunity here and there. And for the most part, people are excited. So I just wanted to share that bit because usually those voices, don't come forward, but we're committed to hearing from all of them.
Thank you, Marta. Okay, so that was Andrew, then Dr. Z, instead of Andrew, Laura, and Dr. Z. But Laura, do you want to have the last word?
That's a cocktail,
Yeah,
actually.
okay.
Yes. Tammy, I just want to say, when I was speaking about instability at Fort River, I was not directly speaking about you or your staff, but about my experience living in this district and seeing administrative changes over and over and over again at Fort River, which is not a secret to anyone. And the same thing is true for the middle school. There's been an extraordinary amount of disruption and change in leadership. So I'm not saying I love this district. I wouldn't be sitting here if I didn't love this district. And I think the educators are amazing and incredible, and I'm thrilled that I've had the opportunity to send my children through the schools. So I just want to be really clear that nothing that I was saying was a personal or direct attack on any of the individuals who are currently working in the schools. Okay, so I hope that makes sense. Yeah, so I think that was the important thing that I really wanted to say, was that I'm not trying to disparage our fantastic educators, paraeducators, staff, and leaders, but that I am concerned, and I continue to be concerned, that we aren't, the district itself is still dealing with a lot of instability, which is not Dr. Z's fault, and so not implying that it came from that. That's been years of difficult and problematic administration and situations. And as a new school committee member, this is my first opportunity to sit on this side of the table and say those things, but I've been saying those things on the other side of the table for the last 10 years, so.
And can I remind you that sitting on this side of the table, there's a caution. Thank you. All right, so are we ready to move on to the next agenda item? Or does somebody care to make a motion?
Well, I have a point of order.
Yes.
Policy BEA. Our meetings are expected to last no longer than 2.5 hours, and it's now 10 o'clock, so that's 3.5 hours. So we should either adjourn or vote to extend by another half hour. So I'm not going to move that, but except to say that we should adjourn if nobody's going to move to extend the meeting.
I move that we extend the meeting for half an hour. Do I have a second?
Second.
Vote? Bridget?
Yes.
Laura Jane? Oh, hot seat for the first time.
Abstain?
Okay. Andrew?
Yes.
Sarah?
No.
All right, so,
Did you vote?
oh, yeah, I voted, yes, I motioned it, I moved it. So I'm going to say yes, and so that is 1 abstain, so it passes 3, 1, no absences. We have another half an hour. Let's see if we can do it in less. Are we ready to move on to the next agenda item, or does somebody want to make a motion?
I'm very torn on making a motion. I feel disappointed that we can't think about the budget and this piece at the same time, because I think we're just really gonna end up in a very tough place. And if we put all this work and move the 6th graders just to discover that we're, doing it next year, I think it's going to be very disheartening. But on the other hand, at the end of the day, I think I should defer to the numerous experts in the room who say, move forward. We're going to move forward. We've got a plan. We've been working very hard on this plan, and so I think I'm glad I talked about it out loud, because I'm not going to make a motion, even though I think that it was, honestly, I'll just be honest, I think it was a bad plan to start with, and I think Dr. Z and everyone agrees, and it's hard to accept that we're stuck in this sort of bad plan, and now we're going to have to make lemonade out of the lemons, and more lemons are coming. We're going to get overloaded with lemons, but here we are. All right, so
Okay.
no motion for me.
All right, so to coin a phrase of my senior, 6'7". So we're moving on to, yeah, I think I'm so clever when I say that, and she rolls her eyes. But, okay, so thank you all for appearing. There is no motion. The discussion was had, and we're moving on to subcommittee assignments, so
Oh, can I make a motion?
yes.
Can I make a motion that we don't talk about this as a discussion?
You can make that request of the chair not to bring that up. Are you saying are we just done? Is that what you're saying?
I guess I'm saying, I felt like this was very, very helpful. I feel like I understand the situation much better than I did before. And I don't think that there's room in our future to reopen this as a conversation. That would be what I would say. So my motion would be that we,
Okay, wait a minute.
I know I got to say it right
Whoa,
though.
whoa, whoa, whoa.
Um,
Wait, I have to type it because I'm not going to keep up with you.
I can't, the notes are so hard to,
Go for it.
I would like to make a motion that we continue forward with the plan to move the 6th grade into the Chestnut Street Academy in the fall of 2026, unless something really huge happens. I don't know what to.
I don't think.
Like
Barring, yeah.
barring
the
unforeseen
necessities.
unforeseen and difficult circumstances or something. I don't know.
Unforeseen.
Chestnut Street Academy,
Academy.
barring,
Unforeseen circumstances.
Well, is the budget
Some-
unforeseen?
Well, partially seen. Sorry.
Maybe only some of us see it right now.
Barring an insurmountable barrier.
Yeah, that's great.
You happy with that?
I mean, it's medium.
Can I think,
You wanna wordsmith it? Yeah.
Barrier.
Let's have some
Okay.
wordsmithing.
Do we have a second?
wait, can you read it back?
Can we wordsmith
We-
it a little more?
I move, the motion is, we continue to move forward with the plan to move forward. To move, okay,
We can have friendly.
yeah, go ahead, go for it.
Just a thought, instead of saying could we just instead put a motion forward that we will visit this topic every single meeting going forward until the school's open? Meaning not the discussion of whether or not to do the plan. I mean, to have check-ins about what the plan is going, every single meeting going forward until the.
Okay, so there's a motion, and then there's a request, and I'm not sure how the two fit together. The motion is to continue to move forward the 6th grade into the Chestnut Street Academy, barring insurmountable barrier. And then the request is regular updates.
Point of order.
Yes.
I think Andrew's request is for future agenda planning.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Okay,
I think
good.
that's what I'm
But
asking.
okay, so hold on to that. Sarah?
Yeah, I think Laura Jane said in the fall of 2025.
I'm 2026.
Sorry, definitely not that.
In
Fall of
Not in the
2026.
In the fall of 2025, barring
2026.
26, barring insurmountable barriers.
Second.
Okay, it moved and seconded. Is there discussion? Roll call vote. Not roll call vote. Oh, boy. My brain is done being chair. We don't need a roll call vote. All those in favor? Yay, 5-0. That's it. So that is the end of that agenda item. Moving on to subcommittee assignments. No, yes, moving on to new subcommittees. So I am going to not table that. I am going to not do that item. However, that translates.
Defer it, I think.
Defer it, I don't know. Because I realized in trying to write the committee charges, I have an idea of the committees that I think will help us, but I don't have charges. So, my plan then is to ask the two individuals that I had planned to ask to be on the subcommittee to work together to come up with a charge and a purpose, if they see fit, for a more general. So the plan is, let me just read it. I have it. I have too many screens open. All right. I don't have it. I do have it. Give me a sec, sorry. Clock is ticking. To create planning committees, to develop a draft name, description, scope and charge, calendar, and meeting schedule for subcommittees for finance, communications, and governance and policy implementation. So we could call them planning subcommittees. I could just ask the individuals to work together if that is adequate. For finance, the general guidance would be to consider, to create, to draft the name, description, scope / charge, calendar, and meeting schedule for an Amherst School Committee Finance Subcommittee that would develop year-round, maybe I can just give this to, let me share this with Seth. Seth, you still there?
Yep.
Um,
How are you sending it?
hang on, I'm sorry?
How are you sending it?
I'm gonna send you a link to the Google Doc.
Via email?
Yes, do you have email access?
I do. Just wanted to make sure I was opening the right tab.
And tell me what, oh, there you are.
I'm the only Seth in the district.
Seth, all right. Oh. Let's see. I'm gonna say it while you find it.
And Deb, is
Oh,
it a
there it is.
motion?
Okay. All right, the planning subcommittees to develop draft name, description, scope / charge, calendar and meeting schedule for 3 potential subcommittees. One is finance, which would develop year-round budgeting practice aligned with MASC recommending best practices. And I list them from a document I could not find online that I got from MASC. And then with the possible tasks for the subcommittee, with the possible tasks for the planning subcommittee to review, for the possible tasks of the actual subcommittee to review quarterly reports, the annual audit, end-of-year reports, track budgeting cost center trends, and submit annual financial reports to the Amherst School Committee. Communications is less specific, but looking for ways in which we develop community and school committee communications and access to our information. In particular, my hope is our documents, which live in board docs chronologically, and possibly manage a school committee website. And then the third subcommittee would be governance and policy implementation. And I believe that there is some work that we could benefit from a look at self-governance and how we work as an Amherst School Committee on the evaluation process, and in particular, how we understand the implementation of our policy. So I continually find myself saying, we draft policy, and I have no idea what that means in terms of what it looks like on the ground. So I think that is a place where I would benefit from understanding, and all of us would benefit from understanding what our policy looks like out in the real world. So those are the 3 that I am suggesting people either work on or we have planning committees for. Yeah, Sarah.
So a planning committee is just planning the subcommittees?
Yeah, to bring forward a draft charge, to kind of dig into it and think of whether or not it would be beneficial and what it would look like.
But are you proposing a planning committee for each of the subcommittees, or one planning committee that can look at all of this
The
at once?
two people I was planning on asking to serve on those subcommittees,
Would do.
I'm asking to serve on the planning of
planning
the
of it.
subcommittees.
Okay.
So point of order,
Yeah.
are you making a motion and we're going to vote? Or are you just telling us because you're the chair and you're in charge of the committees?
Yeah,
Like either way, I'm good. I just
I'm in the
want to
middle.
help us move.
I'm looking for a little bit of feedback. You're in the, you're, either way is good with you, Sarah.
Yeah, subcommittees, the chair can't create them by herself or appoint people. We have to vote on them. So I guess these planning committees basically would come up with the motion.
They would come up, they would bring forward a
Right,
draft
but
charge.
as a, right, here's what the committee would look like,
Yeah.
here's da-da-da. Okay. I don't think anyone watching knows who the people are, so
Okay.
perhaps you could state for the record who you've sketched in. Yeah.
Okay. Laura Jane, question?
Is it possible to add a subcommittee that is the liaison to the sixth grade planning team? I mean, I'm not trying to add more work on your plate, of course. I just, given Andrew's previous question about regular check-ins and the level of detail that is coming up, that it would be useful for the Amherst School Committee to understand, I would just wonder if that would be something that would be valuable. Which I just made up, I wasn't planning that, I just made it up right now, so I'm not tied to it anyway.
I'm going to assign myself that job of being the liaison and working with Dr. Z and making sure that we stay well-informed. Okay, so.
So it's a great idea is what you're saying.
It is a perfect
great
idea,
idea.
yes. All right, so my intention was for the communications and what I'm calling governance, policy, and implementation. That would be, okay, let's do it the other way. Bridget and Andrew on communications. Governance, planning, and implementation would be Andrew and me, and FinCom would be me and Bridget. And you notice that Laura Jane and Sarah are not included. Sarah, I didn't include you partially because of the reservations that you expressed regarding time commitment, and in particular, your commitments on the regional school committee. So that was my general idea.
And do you, I mean,
Go
I'm
ahead.
not on them, but when do you want that proposal? Next meeting?
That'd be great, but you know, if you can't do it by next meeting, then the meeting after. It's not high priority, but I do think, thinking about what would be beneficial structurally would be useful. And then in terms of the other assignments, Andrew, you're already doing Amherst Media representative for the region, so I was thinking about you for also Amherst. Sarah, I would make the same request for MPAC, and you said you'd already considered it. BCG, and the collaborative for Amherst. I'm not sure if it's collaborative is Amherst or region specific.
There's usually one from each.
One
Like
from
when I
each.
did it, it was me and Tillman.
Okay, so the collaborative for Amherst. Then Laura Jane, I was thinking BCG. And the superintendent evaluations subcommittee as the Amherst representative for the joint committee. And you expressed an interest in being an MASC representative, as well as the Amherst rep for CPAC. And I understand that's a heavy load. So and I asked you to think about that and commitments. And then I'm just going to go all the way down the list. Bridget, thinking about you for policy, especially in the context of the JKAA that's coming up, the policy that we voted to send. We fast-tracked an abbreviated version.
Oh, the restraint.
And the restraint and seclusions
yeah,
one.
because we have
Gotcha.
to
Because that, she's already well in the middle of that. And then JCPC and SEAC. And again, I'm not really sure how the SEAC works out between the region and,
We have one for each, and I'm the regent.
okay. So Laura Jane, I was thinking about you. But again, let me know if that's not going to be something that works. Just to say, in public, we switched the warrant authorization from Laura Jane to Sarah Marshall because that makes sense from a bookkeeping point of view. And then for myself, to stay on the elementary school building committee, as well as I get the professional leave because that's the chair, and JCPC as well. So yes, I went about it in an unorthodox way. I did have one-on-one conversations with people because it is not something that we deliberate on, but I'm welcoming anybody's feedback on those. Go ahead, Sarah.
You know where the spreadsheet is to
I do.
be updated?
I
Yeah.
do.
Okay.
I do.
Great.
Go ahead.
Thank you for your unearned confidence.
Okay.
If I want to do all of it.
Of course you do.
Do we ever reevaluate at any point, or
At any time.
Yes.
okay?
I would say some of those are a lighter lift than they sound. BCG is probably does not, it meets like 5 times a year at max, and we've already met 4.
4 times?
So we've met
Met
4
4
times.
times?
I think so. Sarah's surprised.
In 2026?
For this.
For this
budget.
budget
Oh, for the budget
cycle.
cycle. Okay, not
Yeah,
here.
not,
Okay.
not 4 times in 2026. MASC, you can go or not go.
I mean,
And then CPAC is once a month. SEAC is, well,
Once a
you-
month.
once a month. And yeah, that's it.
hopefully they'll all fall like on the same day.
Policy, and so policy is usually once or twice a month. It depends on what's in front of us. William's been working hard to get through policy because there's a lot of policy fill-in that we've been trying to do as joint committee. And the superintendent evaluation subcommittee is something that probably should meet more frequently than it has been. But whether or not that's going to happen, I don't know. That's also a joint committee. So, do I have yeses from anybody or no thank yous from anybody? Yeses, 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 yeses. Okay. So, future agenda planning. Andrew, you wanted to request something from future agenda planning, and Dr. Z wants to jump in too. So which order? Dr. Z, do you want to go first?
Yeah, let Dr. Z go first.
So I wanted to say earlier, Andrew, that was a standing agenda item from before.
Great.
And that's why it was the last December. Okay, so I know you were on in December, but that's why I created like a running update. The last one was in December. So it is and then the next one would be in January, where we continue to just update every month. And that was the agreement that we had from I think the start of the school year, to kind of try and update consistently on the K6 and to meet with the chair and see if there's any concerns that we need to come from it.
And
so I do think we need to do that.
Yeah, and it took me a minute to figure out where the running part is, because I said this is the same agenda. The running part is at the bottom, which makes sense unless you're me and you do things backwards, because I'm left-handed. All right, so.
That sounds great.
That sounds great. And then I would say, email me if you have anything else. I sort of have a plan to create a Google Doc so you can just fill it and each separately and just say, hey, I just stuck something in it. so I don't have to keep track of it. So any agenda requests, I actually do have the Google Docs set up for each of you individually. You just put items in it and say, hey, I just put an item in the Google Doc. Sarah?
Yeah, I'd like to request an update from the superintendent on the implementation of that JKAA, the restraint policy that we passed in like emergency vote, to see how that's being rolled or has been rolled out to staff and the training and the reporting. And I also would like to hear, or maybe I just need to read the policy again.
JKAA.
What will we hear, if anything, about incidents?
Okay.
Just what that reporting is like.
What will we hear about incidents? Got it.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else? Quickly. I move we adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second. That was my first second.
Your first second. So that was Deb the first, Andrew for a second. We do not discuss. All those in favor, raise your hand. Yay, we are adjourned at 10:20. Hopefully next meeting will not be as long.
Under the 30 minutes.
Thank you, everyone. Have a great evening.
Thanks.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, Dr. Zia.
Thank you. Can someone please just make sure I get logged out?
I'm on it.
I'll do it. I'll do it now. I'll end the
Thanks.
meeting.